All of you, welcome back once again. In this video, I'll show you how you can design the smart contract architecture before you write the very first piece of code in your smart contract in your front-end side. So let me give you a quick walkthrough about one of the projects we have already built on our channel, Supply Chain Management app. So here I have built the entire structure of the smart contract, including the front-end and the back-end integration we're going to do, and how we're going to simply struct the entire application, what technology we're going to utilize. That's all I have designed in this particular architecture. So you can simply follow and try to replicate the same thing in your next app. So here you can see that I already have the entire architecture for the supply chain management. That's what I have given here, supply chain management. Now let's come back and let's try to understand the architecture. So this is the DApp. We're going to have our store, which is going to be our front end side, and we have our contract which is going to be deployed on the blockchain, and here we have the other user which will interact from our store. So as you know, in the supply chain management there will be one user who will supply the good, and there is another user who is going to receive the good, and the way they're going to communicate through the smart contract, in that they're going to provide the details about the transaction which they want to perform, about the goods, about anything. They have to provide the wallet address, the fund, and the distance which is going to be traveled for that particular code, and the contract would be on the blockchain. The supplier can go and they can request and create the entire supply chain management, and the receiver will also have the access of the contract because the supplier will provide the detail about the recipient who is going to receive the product. So they will have the relation with the help of their wallet address. So that's the structure. So that's the overall of our DApp. Now let's come back to the structure, the actual structure about the technology, about the program which we're going to include in the smart contract, about the variable, about the functionality, that's and the tools and the next state framework, the integration. That's what we're going to utilize it. So here you can see that I have this DApp architecture. We're going to have the smart contract in Solidity programming language, so that's why I have given a separate section for that. Then we have the tools in which you have multiple options to utilize for deploying your contract. You can go with the Hardhat, you can go with the Ganache, or you can use an online remix ID which help you to deploy your contract. So in which we're going to discuss about the tools and the options we have. After that, we're going to use one of the frameworks. So here I have already taken Next.js as a framework in the full DApp we have built on the channel. So in which we're going to use the relevant technology, relevant models which allow us to communicate, and the packages. So Next.js is going to be for our front end side, and we're going to use the Web3 packages which are going to allow us to communicate with the blockchain and interact with the smart contract for performing the transaction, providing all the details. So that's the simplest architecture we have, one for the smart contract, other for the tools for the deployment and the environment. Then we have the front end side where the user is going to interact, and the last one we have the connector, means we're going to allow the user to communicate with the blockchain with the tools. So that's the overall architecture of our DApp. Now let's come back here and let's try to go into little deep about the contract and what are the functionality and what are the variables we want to include in the DApp. So in the smart contract which we have built in the project, you will find that this is the architecture we have followed. So this is our smart contract. This is the basics thing which you have to declare. The Solidity, because we are using the Solidity programming language for developing our smart contract, we are using this particular version, and this version is very important because certain program has certain tricks which you have to do based on the version. If you have a contract which need to be followed in an older version, then you have to go with that. Okay, but as of now, we should always follow the latest version of our Solidity programming language. So that's what I have defined. Then we have the license identifier. We have multiple identifier. You can pick with anyone, but the most popular one which we use at the moment, which you will find in most of the contract we have on the EVM compatible chain, is MIT. So you can go with that. And I'm going to call my contract as a tracking. So that's the basic architecture about the contract before I actually write the contract. Once I've done with the basic information, now let's talk about the data structure. After that, we're going to discuss about the functionality. So in the data structure, we're going to keep few data set. It's going to have the events, then we'll have the struct, then we'll have the mapping, and we have the state variable. This is the 4 data set we're going to have in the smart contract, which is going to keep the track of the events which are going to be take place on the blockchain. So it would be very easy for us to get the data and simply provide it in the front end side. We have the struct where we can define all the structure about the supply which user is doing. In that it will have the price, it will have the time, it will have the distance, all those details it will have. We have the mapping which allow us to communicate and make the relevance that which user have created which particular mapping. So we can able to identify the data with the help of this mapping based on the address. Then we have the state variable in which we're going to define certain state variable like how much money we want to make as a DApp owner, or there should be a constant variable which you want to use it during the function call. So this is the 4 type of data set we're going to have in our contract. Now we're going to have a couple of functions. We're going to have a constructor in which we're going to initialize a couple of things. So we're going to have a owner of the contract. So it's going to be me if I'm deploying the contract. So that's what we're going to utilize it in the constructor, and we're going to keep more information about it. Then we're going to have a function called create shipment. This will allow user, those who want to ship their project on the blockchain, they can simply call this particular function. In that they can provide the details about, like, say, the wallet address of the receiver, the price, the distance, and the good. That's what they have to provide in the function, and they can call it. So this data would be registered in our state with the help of in the mapping, and we have the struct, and we're going to also emit the event, and we're going to also check for the state variable to make the connection, and then we have to execute the transaction. So we're going to have this particular function, create shipment. Then we're going to have another function for complete shipment. So when the user will receive the supply, so this function can be called with the recipient, or it can also be called by the one who supply the product. So we are providing the access to both the user, so they can simply complete the shipment once the particular product is received by the recipient. So that's why we have this particular function. In that we're going to simply pass the ID of that particular supply, because every single supply will have a unique ID, and that's going to represent the entire supply which is going to be take place in the smart contract. So that's what we have. Then we have the get shipment. This will allow us to get all the shipment we have in the contract, so we can display in the front end, and the user can track, because it will have three different state. It will have the like initialized, means starting, then we have the intermediate, then we have the recipient. So it will have three different stage, so user can track the entire process of the shipment. Then we have the shipment count. So this will allow us to simply count the shipment, that how many shipment we have. You can take it to a narrow, where you can simply do the shipment count based on the individual user, or based on the one who actually sending, or you can take it as a global approach. You can do all of that. Then we have this get all transaction, and this one is very important, because sometimes what we have to do is we have to make the data on the public ecosystem, and that's how we can simply gain trust about the users. They will utilize our DApp, and when they will utilize our DApp, we'll make commission. So this is the entire overstructure we have about the smart contract. If you have this picture clear, you can easily able to develop your smart contract very easily. So we are done with the smart contract. Now let's come back to the next one about the tools, that what are the options we have. This particular project we have follow Hardhat for deploying our contract, for generating the API, for compressing, for the deployment. We have used Hardhat for that, for testing in the local environment as well as in the actual test network. You have the other alternative. You can go with the Remix ID, you can go with the Truffle or Ganache, both is the same. You can use those tools to deploy the contract and use it. But in the project we have follow Hardhat. It's very friendly, very easy, and we already have a complete course on that which you can simply follow if you want to focus on more towards the auditing. Then we're going to simply use the Hardhat ecosystem for deploying our contract. So first we're going to test the contract in our local environment, then we're going to simply deploy to actual test network. That's why we have given this local host, because there you can do a lot of testing. You will also get some free faucet of 20 plus account which you can use it and test right in the eco environment. You're going to learn how you can simply do the configuration of the local environment in the MetaMask, so you can perform the transaction, and how you can simply connect with the actual test network so you can perform the transaction. And we're going to use Tailwind CSS for front end sides. We're going to build the designing part, and we're going to simply do the styling of our entire element. So these are the tools we're going to utilize for our deployment and for the beautification. So once you're done with that, now we can come back to the front end side. So you have multiple options to pick, but I'm going to get with the Next.js. Next.js is very popular, very stable, and it has a lot of features which help you and take most of your work away from you. You can pick any other framework. You can go with the plain JavaScript or HTML, CSS. You can take Angular, you can take the React, but I like Next.js a lot. And whatever project I have developed over my client, that's all I have built using Next.js. So that's what we're going to utilize it. We're going to simply follow two different models. We're going to simply follow in the local deployment, where we're going to do all the testing. After that, we're going to simply go to the actual production where we can use the Vercel, or we can use Netlify, or you can use any hosting platform. That's all we have covered extensively in the complete project. So after this, you should watch the complete project. You will understand everything. We have already discussed about the production, and here we have the static model. So you can simply generate the static file, and you can simply deploy that to production, or you can simply deploy as an Next.js file. You have both the option. That's already I have covered in the project extensively. So once you will follow the complete project, you will understand every single thing. And you're going to simply do the deployment based on the GitHub as well. You can deploy your code to GitHub, and from there you can simply inject to any hosting platform. So that's going to be our front end size, totally related to the front end, and where user can interact with your contract and with your tab. Once you're done with that, now come back to the tools we have. This tool is absolutely must. Without this tool, you cannot able to build this particular application. We need Ether.js, which allows us to communicate with the blockchain. So we can able to make the connection and get the object of the contract, and we can simply allow the user to perform the transaction and register the transaction on the chain. So we're going to use Ether.js for that. We have a Web3.js. It's exactly the same, but Ether.js is more popular at the moment, and you will find multiple SDK which use the Ether.js. So you have these two options. We have this Web3 model which allows us to communicate with the crypto wallet. So you can use any other wallet. We're going to use MetaMask for our transaction, which we're going to use it and do the configuration with the help of this Web3 model. Then we have the Hardhat, because Hardhat will generate the ABI of our contract, which we're going to utilize it to make the connection, because we need the ABI of the contract and the address for performing the transaction. So we're going to use this, and we have this Nomic foundation which allows us to deploy the contract. And you can use it as a forking transaction as well. There is no problem in it. So this is the tool. This is the complete architecture we're going to follow in the complete project. And I would suggest you to follow the complete project. You will understand every single thing, that how this product is so relevant in the industry at the moment. I personally deliver a lot of projects around this particular technology. This is the simplest architecture I have designed, but this is exactly what I have delivered to my actual client. Now let me give you a complete walkthrough in practical, that what exactly we have developed. So you can simply watch the complete demo. After that, you can start following the complete project. Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another project video. In this project, you're going to build decentralized distributed system where you will allow user to create tracking of their products. So they can create the tracking, they can take the data of the tracking, they can complete the tracking, and it's 100% responsive for all the devices. So this one is going to be a powerful application which you can add in your resume to get a Web3 job. And this one is absolutely amazing to understand the fundamental of the smart contract and how you can deal with a real world distributed system, which you can take it from the centralized to the decentralized platform. So let me give you a quick walkthrough that what you're going to build in this complete project. So this is how the interface of this distribution DApp system would look like. We have the tables, we have the services components. So if you click on this complete shipment, it will open up the pop-up, so you can pass the address of the recipient who will receive the product, and you will pass the index, and it will give you the data. So I'll show you how it will look. This is the get shipment, this is the start shipment, this is the user profile. So these are the services we are providing. Now let's click on this and connect our wallet first. So here I have to pass my credentials. You have to pass your credential to connect your wallet. So click on unlock, and here we are logged into the application. You can see the wallet address is displaying. So already I have registered a couple of products. So let's try to find out the data of that particular product. So I'll provide this zero index, and if I click on this get details, I can able to get the data of that particular product. So it will have the recipient, it will have the sender, it will have the pickup time, delivery time, distance, price, status, and whether the amount is paid or not. So that's also working fine. You can see you will find all of these data about that particular product. You can increase the index, and you can go to the next product shipment data. So you can click on this and the data will reflect. So these are the indexes, are the unique ID for each of the product you will create on this marketplace. You can see you will have all of the data, and this is how you can start the shipment. So once you create the shipment, you have to start the shipment. So if I close this one, and if I scroll down here, you can see that this is the entire table we have. So we have the sender, we have the recipient, we have the pickup, we have the distance, we have the price, and here you will find all the product we have listed for supply chains. You will find that some of them have the pending status, delivery, and in transmitted. I'm going to simply change the status. So before I do that, let me show you that how you can add the product into the system. So click on this add tracking. It will open up this pop-up model, and in that you have to provide the data. You have to provide the recipient, you have to provide the date and time, you have to provide the distance and the price, and you can provide more data. It's totally up to you, but I'll go with a simple approach. So let me provide the date. I'll close this one. First thing, I have to get the address of the recipient. So I'll come back to the MetaMask wallet and I have to get the address. Grab that one, come back to the account 2, and I'll click on this add tracking, paste the address of the recipients, pick up the date 17, distance is going to be, let's say, 1234, and I have to charge. The price is going to be, let's say, 56. Click on create shipment, and here I have to make the transaction. Click on confirm, and here we have completed the transaction, and here you can see this is the latest transaction we have created. It's working absolutely fine. Now what I want to change the status. So right now the status is pending, but I want to initialize the transaction, means the product is out for delivery. So that's the changes I have to do. So come here, first thing we have to do is let's get the data. So let's click on this and click on this, and this is the, you can see on the 9th index we have the entire data of the product we have created. Looks fine. Now we have to change the status. So we have to start the shipment. So we have to provide the recipient address and we have to provide the ID 9. Click on this get details and it will make a transaction. Click confirm, and here the transaction went through and you can see the products is out for shipment in transmitted. It's also working fine. Now what I want to do is I want to complete the shipment. So for completing the shipment you have to call this function, provide the recipient address, provide the ID 9 and click on this change status, or you can call it complete shipment. Interacting the smart contract, click on confirm, and here we have done the transaction and you can see the product is delivered. And we have the timestamps. This time we have updated the product. So everything is working fine. Everything is working fine. You can see it's 100% responsive for the mobile device as well. So this is how it's going to look on a mobile device. We have this one. You can open on, and you can open the form. You can simply slide through this entire data. That looks absolutely fine. And we can come down. We can click on this component. Click on this. Click on this. And you will have all the start shipment. This is the profile section you have. Looks pretty good. So everything is working fine. You can see everything is 100% responsive for all the devices, and this one is amazing project which you can include in your portfolio. So let's click on this. You can see it's 100% responsive, very flexible. That looks absolutely amazing. So that's the overview of the tab which you are about to build in the next couple of hours, and I will provide you the starter file so you guys can download the starter file. In that I have given you the folder and file structure which you don't need to create, and I have also provided you the assets which I have used like images, icons, so all of things which you will download from the website. So this is the tracking folder we have, and in this we're going to work it. So simply open this folder in VS Code Studio, and you can see we have opened the folder. Now bring your terminal up and we have to initialize the project. So the very first thing we have to do is we have to create a next app. So this is the command we're going to type, npm create next app .n. We're going to hit enter. So this will create the project in the same directory, and in this project we're not going to use TypeScript or SLint, so say no, and this will create the folder and file structure which we need for this project. So just wait for a moment, and here you can see we have successfully initialized the project and we have created all this folder. So simply go to the pages. Inside the pages you will find all this API folder, app, document, Next.js. So you can see we have all of these one. So there's document. If you come to the public, this is the style file. Inside that, this is the package.json file, and that we will have all the packages will install. And now we have to simply run this, and we have to see that everything's working fine. So type npm run dev. You can see we have started the application in localhost 3000 and it looks pretty good. Everything's looking good. Okay, so we have successfully initialized next app. Now what we have to do is stop the application from running, and we have to do a couple of setups. So first we have to come into the pages and we have to delete all the folders, all the files, all the code which we don't need in our project. So we're going to simply delete this API folder because we are not dealing with an API. Now come to the document, delete this one as well. Come to the index, and we have to remove all of this code. Remove the type RAFC, and this is the general setup we have. Looks pretty fine to me. Now let's come here, go back to the styles, and we have to delete this one, home modules, delete this one. So this is the CSS file we need to delete. Close it. In this project we're going to use Tailwind CSS for installing all the components. So here I'm on tailwindcss.com. make sure to come here, and we have to click on get started. So from here you have to select the framework which you want. So I will go to framework, and here we're going to choose Next.js. We have all of this framework, whichever you are comfortable in you can select that, but we're going to use Next.js, and these are the configuration we have to do. So we have successfully initialized the project. So now we have to simply install the packages. So grab this one. So we have already done this. Now grab this one, come here, and we have to paste and install the packages. Now we have to initialize the Tailwind CSS. Type it, and here we have initialized Tailwind CSS. Open this one, and this is the predefined code which Tailwind CSS creates. We're going to replace this code with some configuration, and this is the post CSS. We don't need to do anything in here. Looks fine. And this is the configuration we have to do in tailwind config file. So simply grab this code, copy this entire code, and simply replace with this. Looks fine. So that's the only setup we have to do. One more we have to do. Now we have to utilize this global CSS. Okay, so this will allow us to use the extra classes, the custom classes we want to use in this project. So simply grab this one, and this is the one we're going to paste inside this global CSS. So I hope this makes sense to all of you guys. Okay, so looks fine. Now we're going to simply grab this one to check whether it's working or not. So grab this one, come back to the index, and here we're going to paste. And now we have to start the application. Type npm run dev and open the app. So you can see, reload the browser, and our tailwind CSS is working fine. So our text is bold and we have another line. That means it's working. Looks pretty fine to me. So now we're going to install Hardhat packages, which allow us to write the smart contract, test the smart contract, and deploy the smart contract. So here I have opened Hardhat. Make sure to open it, and these are the commands you have to write for installation. So you have couple of options. You have npm 6 yarn, but we'll go with the npm. So this is the thing you have to copy. So once you run this, it will create a dev dependency, but simply grab that one, and let's come here. Let me clear the terminal and let's install it. We'll type npm I hardhat. So this is the command you have to run, and this will install the Hardhat package in the project. So just wait, this will take a little bit time, and you can see once the installation get completed, you will find the packages here. So it's taking time. Now what we have to do, come here and we have to go to the Ether.js, because this package we also need, and this package is really powerful. It's allow you to interact with a smart contract and communicate, make the connection with Ethereum and through the RPC world, and provide other options as well. So if you are new to Ether.js, I have a complete project. I have a complete tutorial on Ether.js. I'll link in the I button in the description, so you guys can follow that if you really want to know more about this library. So click on the installations, and these are the commands you have to run. This is how you can utilize it in your project, so you can have a look from your end. Okay, so I'm going to show you everything from the beginning, and now we have to come here. We'll type web3 model. This is the one more package we're going to utilize, and this package will allow us to connect the wallet. So all you have to do is to import the package, and you can easily able to connect with any wallet. So you can see it's pretty easy. So looks fine. You will have a couple of examples which you can follow. Click on docs, and here you will find that information about the doc. So we have installed Hardhat. Now we have to clear the terminal, and we have to initialize Hardhat. So type npx hardhat, and this will initialize the Hardhat. Now we have to select the project type. So whether you want to go with TypeScript, JavaScript, or empty Hardhat config file, but we go with the JavaScript project. Hit enter and hit enter, and this will install the necessary packages which you need. So you can see we have installed the packages. Now clear your terminal, and now we have to do certain things. So we have to install the packages. Okay, so we have to install Ether. So we have to install Ether, and this is the exact version you have to use. I don't know why when I was testing with the latest version I was getting an error, like when I was interacting with the web3 model. Okay, so I was getting error, so that's why I will go with the specific versions. If you're watching this video after a year or a 6 month, then make sure to follow the exact version, otherwise it will not work. So we'll use 5.7.2 version. Hit enter, and this will install the packages. And now we have to install the last package, which is a web3 model. Type I web3 model, and you have to pick the exact version. Okay, that looks fine. And here we have installed all the packages, and all the information about this packages you will find in the package.json file. If I scroll down, you can see we have dev dependency, we have dependency. Okay, so these are the packages we have installed. So looks fine. Close this one, and close this one, close this one, and we are done almost with all the setups. Now we have to create the folders and file. So let's come here, close this one, and let's click on the main directory and create a folder. We'll create a folder by the name component, and in this we're going to create all the component for our applications like table, navbar, footer bar. So this is the component we have. Now we have to create one more component, a folder, and this we're going to manage our context API. That's why we have called context. Now this looks fine. We have the two folders, but right now we're not going to create the components. We're going to work on the smart contract and the context. So click on the smart contract, and this is the contract, pre-existing contract we have. So what we have to do is we have to delete this one. So delete this contract, and we're going to come to the script folder, and that we have to do the configuration. So you can see there is so much mess in this deploy script, but we need a clean deploy script. So delete this comments. We have to delete some extra codes from here. We don't need to pass, we don't need this one as well. And come here, we have to simply remove this because we don't need that one, and we'll say, let's say tracking. Okay, that looks fine. So we're going to make the changes in the file name. Okay, we're going to make changes. So this looks fine, and this is the component we have, this is the context we have, and this is the contract folder we have. Now let's create a folder file in the contract, and we're going to call tracking.sol because that's the contract we're going to build. So that's the file we have, and now let's start writing the smart contract. So first we have to import the license identifier. Actually we have to type the license identifier, not import. Now we have to define the pragma Solidity version, which we going to take its 8.0, and now we have to initialize the contract, and we're going to call it tracking. In that we have to define the enum, because our tracking model will have the status system, like it's in delivery mode or delivery completed, or it's in between the delivery. Okay, so that's the enum we are to define. So shipment status is going to be a pending, in transmit, and deliver. So these are the three status of the product we'll provide. Well, come here, we're going to take the struct, and that we're going to keep all the information about the product. So the first thing we have to keep is the address of the sender, the one who is sending the product. The second is going to be the address of the recipient. The third one is going to be the pickup time, when the package will be pick up. Then we'll have the UNT is going to be delivered time. So when the package will be delivered, the product will be delivered. Now we'll have this distance. What is the distance? We'll have the price. We'll have the shipment status. Initially we're going to pass this status, and from there we're going to pick it. So we'll say status, and we're going to take this boolean is paid. So this will keep the track of whether the payment is made or not. So that's the start we have. Come here, we have to take a mapping. It's going to be address type, and it's going to keep a track of the shipment. So this address will give a single shipments data. It's going to be a public shipments. We have to take a UNT, and this will keep the track of number of shipment we are doing. So that's the one we have, and now we have to take the struct, and in this we're going to do all the experiments. So this struct I'm taking because sometimes we have to modify certain data to display on our front end. Okay, you can go with the previous data, the previous struct, but I try to keep things simple, so that's why I'm taking this approach for creating another struct for the display purpose. And in this we're going to define all the data exactly the same. So we're going to provide the address, sender, receive period. We're going to provide the UNT, the pickup time. We have to provide the delivery time. We have to provide the distance, and we have to provide the price, and it's going to be a shipment status, and the last one is going to be is paid. So that's the entire struct we have for the type shipment, and we have to take the array as well. So it's going to be a type shipment array, and it's going to be called type shipments. In this we're going to keep the entire shipments data, so we can fetch it and we can display in the front end. Now we'll come here, and now we have to take the event. So we have to initialize all the event. So the first event we have this create shipment, and that we are taking the address of the sender, recipient, and the price, a pickup time, distance, price. And you can see that I have used this event in one place, two place, and only two place. But in event you can pass 3 indexes for filtering the data, but not more than that. So this is the first shipment we have, events we have. Now let's create the other event. We have this in transmit, so when the product is in delivery. Okay, so we're going to pass the exact data. Now we have this shipment delivered, so when the delivery is completed, in that we have to pass the exact data. about the shipments. So these are the three events we have. Now we have to take one more. This is called shipment paid. So we have to pass the exact data, sender, recipient, and we have to pass the amount. So these are the events we have, and now we have to define the constructor. So we'll say constructor, and in that we have to simply increase the count to 0. So we have to define the 0 variable. You can go with the straightaway variable, but here I'm updating with the help of constructor. So that's the constructor we have, and now we have to write the functionality for our smart contract to make all these things happen. Okay, so let's come here. We're going to create a function by the name create shipment, because that's the very first function anybody can call. After that they can call the get data, update data, start data, but they need to have some but before they call any one of those functions, they have to create the shipment. So in the create shipment, we have to pass couple of data. We have to pass the receiver, the one who's going to receive the product. We have to pass the pickup time, we have to pass the distance, we have to pass the price, and it's going to be public and payable, so anybody can call and make the transaction. Because in this function we're going to deal with the price, the money. So now we have to check for a condition. So message.value is going to be equal to the price. If it's less or higher, then we have to throw the error message. Payment amount must match the price. So that's the first condition we have. Now we'll come down here, and here we're going to simply update the data in our circuit. So we'll take a memory shipments, and we're going to identify based on the sender, the one who's calling the function, and in that we have to simply pass all of this data. We have to pass in the shipment. So sender, time, distance, price, and status is going to be pending. When the shipment will create, it will be a pending, and paid is going to be false. So this is the data updating. Once we update the data, we're going to simply take this message.sender is going to be pushed into the array. So the array we have created, that looks fine. Now we have to take this shipment count and we have to increase, because this will keep the track of how many shipments we have created in the contract. So that's the create function, and we'll come here. We're going to take this display array data, and we're going to push the entire data into our types system. Okay, so simply let update the data. So we'll take this type shipment, and then we're going to simply update message.sender, the one who's calling the function. We have to update the receiver, we have to update the pickup time, amount, we'll have the distance, and we're gonna have the price. We'll have the shipment state is going to be pending, and we'll have the false paid is going to be false. So that looks fine. So this is how we have updated the data, and so it looks pretty good. And now we have to simply close this one and come down here, and we have to initialize the event shipment created, and we have to pass sender, receiver, pickup time, distance, price. So these are the 4 data we are taking, and we have to simply close the function. So that's the function we have for creating the shipment. And now we have to create the other function which calls start the shipment. So once the function is got created, it will be hold in the contract. So it will in the contract, and once the product is ready for shipment, we have to call this function to make the status, to change the status and notify the recipient and the sender that the product is ready for shipment, it's already shipped. So we're going to pass this address of the sender, we'll pass the address of the receiver, and the UNT, the index. So every single product will have an index positions, and that's what we have to pass to make the shipment start. Okay, we'll say public, and in this we are not passing any payable keyword because we are not making any transaction with the money. So public, we'll come here, and here we have to check the, and here we're going to simply update the status. So we'll say shipment storage shipment, and we're going to find the particular shipment based on the index. So once we have that particular shipment, we'll come here, and we're going to simply take this type statement because we have to update the data as well, and it's also we find on based on the index. So once we find in both the data, we have to simply update it. So we'll say we'll say shipment dot receiver equal to the recipient. So this is how we can validate that they have to provide the receiver address to match this condition. So receiver, now we're going to simply pass this receiver shipment status is going to be a shipment pending. If it's not pending, then we don't allow them to call this function. So I believe that you guys can understand the logic we have tried to build. So this function is going to be called once the shipment is created, because this will define the product is ready for dispatch or it's dispatched, and that's why we are changing the status from here, and we are checking that if the status is deeply equal to the pending, then we have to call this function. But if anything it will be something than this, like deliver or transaction, then we want to fail the function to call. Okay, so that's the second check we have. We'll take this shipment and we're going to change the status to in transmit, because it's ready, it's dispatched for the delivery, and we have to simply update the data here as well. So that looks fine to me. Now we'll come here and we have to initialize the event for the in transmit, and we have to simply pass the data, sender, receiver, and pickup time. Close this one. So this is the second function we have created. So the first function for creating the shipment, and the second function we have for starting the shipment. Now we have to create another function. We'll call function, we'll complete shipment. So once the shipments got delivered, they have to call this function to change the status of the product and make the transaction. So we'll say complete shipment. It will take the address of the sender, receiver, and it will take the index. That's how we can identify the particular product. So now we're going to take the data. So we're going to find that particular shipment which they have delivered, so which we have inside the shipment storage. And the reason we have taken the storage keyword, because we are making the changes in the state variable. Okay, so when you are fetching and displaying the data without making any changes in the state variable, in those scenarios it's better to use memory, because memory will refer to the creating the data in a memory field, so you can easily able to call and you don't need to pay any amount. But when you are making the changes in the state variable, and that time it's always very important that you have to use the storage keyword. So we'll find that particular shipment in the shipments, and we're going to pass the sender and the index, so we can get that particular. And then we have to simply do the same thing for our types shipment data. Okay, this looks fine to me. We have found the particular shipments, and now we have to check for a condition. So we have to check for the condition that message shipment receiver is going to be equal to the recipient, the one whose address is provided. If it's not, then we have to throw the error message. So that's the condition we have. Now we have to check for another condition, that we have to check for the status. So the shipment status should be in transmit. Okay, if it's not, then we have to throw the error message. And then we have to check for the third condition, that it's not paid. Okay, it has to be false, not true. Already paid. If it's true, then it's already paid. Now we have to make the changes in the actual data. So we'll call this shipment status to deliver, and we have to simply update this type shipment also to a delivered. This looks fine. Now we're going to take this type system deliver time. It's going to be a block timestamp. So the moment this function is getting called and the shipment is completed, and we have to simply update the deliver time as well in the actual state. And we'll take this unt, we'll say amount is going to be the price, and we'll say payable shipment sender, and we'll say transfer the amount. So we'll simply transfer the amount to the sender. This looks fine. Now we're going to say this is paid true, and we have to update this in type shipment as well. So I believe that you guys have understood that what we have done here, and we have to initialize the event for the deliver shipment, and that we have to pass the sender, recipient, shipment, delivery time, and looks fine. And we have to initialize the other event which is paid, and that's it. So hope the entire contract makes sense to all of you guys, that what we have done. First we have tried to find out the particular shipment. Once we get that, we are simply updating the data, and we are doing couple of checks. Once we have done the checks, we are transferring the fund to the sender, the one who is calling the functions, and then we are simply making all the changes in other state variable, and we are initializing the event. Simple, very easy. So this is the third function we have. Now we start with the another function. We'll say function get shipment. So this will allow us to get the data about the shipments. So in that we have to pass the sender address and we have to pass the index of the particular shipment. It's going to be a public and view return because we are not making any changes, and view is referred to checking the value of the state variable. You can't use it pure because pure use for local variable, but you cannot use for state variable. And we have to return the address. We have to return the address and unt and shipment status and bool. So these are the data which we have defined in the struct. That's all the data we have to have with this function. So we get it. Now we have to find the particular shipment which a user trying to get access, and that's we can do it based on the index. Once we have the data, now we have to simply return the entire shipments, and then we have to simply pass the shipment sender, shipment receiver, shipment pickup time, shipment delivery time, shipment distance, we have the price, we have the status, we have the paid. So we are passing all the data we are taking with this function, and that's pretty much, and that's the only thing we have to do inside this function, which will allow us to give us the data for the particular shipment. So that's so full. Now we have to write the other function. So let's create that. We'll say get shipments count. So this will allow us to get the number of shipments created. Okay, and we'll say address sender. So this will do on based on the users. Just imagine that I'm a user of this applications and I have created a 4 shipment. So this function will allow us to find out that how many shipments I have created, because ultimately it's a marketplace. A lot of users can come and create the shipment, so we have to have a function which allows the user of the application to know that how many shipments they have created, and it's going to be a public view return. And in that return we have to return the unt because we have to display the number of the shipments. And here we're going to simply return the shipment dot sender and length, and this will give us the data that how many shipments he or she has created. So that looks pretty fine to me. Now let's come here. We have to create one more function. This will call get all transaction, and this function I'm creating specifically because I want to fetch all the transaction which got created in the marketplace, so I can display in the tables. In that I have to simply call this functions, and we'll say public view will have the return, and that we have to return the entire array. And we are using this memory keyword because we are creating the data in the memory when the function is getting called. That's the thing you have to keep in mind. You cannot use storage. And in that we have to simply return the type shipments array, the entire data. Hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys, and simply close that. And that's the entire smart contract we have written for this application, the app we are building. So hope this entire thing makes sense. So this is the contract name we have given, this is the enum we have the entire shipment, we have the mapping, and we have all of this function we have created, get shipment count, and we have built all of this logic. So I believe that this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. If you still have any confusion, try to rewatch, because this one is a very important part in the smart contract development for our DApp, and this is going to be the core functionality for our DApp. Okay, so that's very important to understand every single thing. So this looks pretty fine. Now you can see that. Let's come here, go to the script, and we have to change the name. Deploy, we have to change the name of our contract. So here we have log, simply select and replace this tracking, and that's the same thing we have to do here. And we have to replace this because we are not passing any argument into our constructor. So simply replace this one, replace this with a small t, and grab that one, paste here, and that's the one thing we have to paste here. So that's the entire deploy script we have. I believe that this is nothing new to all of you guys. You already know that how to do it. So that looks pretty fine to me. We are done with the contract, and now comes the most important part. So we're done with the entire one. Open up your terminal, and we have to split the terminal, and we're going to deploy the contract, and after that we're going to build the context for our DApp. So let's split the terminal in 2 parts, and now we have to initialize the local blockchain using Hardhat. So we'll come here, we'll type npx hardhat node, and this will run the local blockchain in our terminal, so we can test our contract. So hit enter, and it will give you 20 accounts it will give you with account address and private key, and each account will have 10,000 ether. I believe that you already know how to import this wallet addresses in your MetaMask account, all you have to do is to take this private key, copy, and simply import in your MetaMask, and it will reflect your account address and the amount you have. Okay, so we have initialized our local blockchain. Make sure you have to initialize it before you deploy your contract, and as long as your contract is live, your app DApp is live, this local node blockchain would be running. If you stop this one, it will throw you an error. So first initialize this, then deploy the contract, and then start the application. So you can see now everything is working fine. All of this we have here. Now we have to deploy the contract. So this is the command we have to write: npx hardhat run network localhost script deploy. So we are deploying to the localhost, that's why this is the command we have to write. Hit enter, and this will deploy the contract. First it will compile your contract, and once it got compiled, it will give you the address of the contract. So this is the address we have. Simply copy that one. Looks fine. Come here, and here it will create the artifact. In that artifact you will have this contract. Inside the contract you will have the contract ABI, which allow us to interact. Okay, so that looks pretty fine. Now we're going to start. So that looks fine. We have cleared the terminal. Now bring this one down, and now what we have to do is we have to start working on the context management of our DApp. So we already have the address of the contract, and now we're going to utilize it. So first thing we have to do is we have to create a file. We're going to call tracking.js, not soul.js. So that's the tracking.js we have, and in that we're going to take this contract and we're going to take this tracking ABI and we're going to grab into this context, and that's the thing we have here. That looks pretty fine to me. Close this one, and now we can start working on our context management. So we're going to write the code in our tracking. So for a couple of packages from React. So we need useState, useEffect, and that's coming from React. So that's the first import. Now we have to import the Web3 model, which allow us to interact with the wallet. We have to import the ethers, that's coming from ethers, and that's the import we have here. Now we're going to do a couple of internal imports. So first thing we have to import the tracking, the ABI of our contract, which we have in the same directory inside the context, and this is the tracking.json. Okay, so we got our ABI, and now we have to simply paste the address of our contract. So we'll say const contract address, and this is the address of the contract. Actually I remember the entire address. So this is the address you will get when you will deploy any contract for the very first time. So just imagine that you have a single contract, and once you deploy the contract, this is the exact address you will get. So we have the ABI, we have the contract address. Now we're going to simply take this contract ABI, which we have inside this tracking.abi. Okay, so this tracking is the folder. In that we have all of this data. From there we are taking the ABI. So that looks pretty fine. Now we can come here. Here we're going to build the function which allow us to fetch the contract, and that's the most important part. If we don't have the contract, we cannot interact with the smart contract. So let's write the function for fetching. So we'll say fetch smart contract. We'll take a variable called fetch contract, and in that we have to pass the signer or provider, like whoever is interacting with our contract. And in that we have to take this new ether package. We'll say contract, and then we have to pass the contract address, contract ABI, and the signer provider. In this way we can able to have the contract, and it will have the reference of the data of the user who is interacting with the contract. So this is the very first function we have, fetch contract. Now we have to come here, we have to export, because we are using context management for managing our entire state in our applications, and this one is really powerful, and if you are a beginner, then this one is really great for you to start. So we'll say export const, we'll say tracking context, and it's coming from create context React. So that's the export we have to do. Now we have to do another one. In this we have to create the provider, and in that we have to pass the children, and in that we're going to write the entire logic for our applications. Okay, so that's what I have. And you might not able to see the codes, the below codes, because I'm using an extension which hide the code from you. Okay, because currently I'm in the testing phase of this extension, that's why you are getting this behavior, but I can see it, but you guys cannot able to see that. Okay, so just follow along with me and type the exact code which I'm typing. And here the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define the state variable. So let's define that. We'll take a DApp name just for testing purpose. Okay, so this is the name we're going to provide, product tracking DApp. And now take the current address of the user, whoever will interact. And now we have to take this create shipment, and this is the function we're going to create. So let's call this async function because we are dealing with a synchronous behavior, and in that we're going to take the data, the entire data for the current shipments, and that will come in the form of object. Okay, that's why I have taken this items. We'll take that. Once we have the data, we're going to simply console log out so you guys can see that what we are getting, and we're going to deconstruct the data. So we'll take the const, and from this items, in this item we'll have all of the data like recipient, amount. So we are deconstructing that. So let's deconstruct receiver, pickup time, distance, price, and that's coming from items because our create shipment needs these 4 data. So once we have the data, we're going to take this try and catch. So if anything goes wrong, we have to keep track of that. So inside that, we're going to take this web3 model, and we have to connect the contract with the wallet. So we'll use new web3 model, and in that we're going to take this connections, await web3 model dot connect. So once we have the connections, we have to take the provider, and that will get from the ethers, new ether dot provider. In that we're going to use this web3 provider, and in that we're going to pass this connection. So this will connection the bridge. And now once we have the provider, we have to get the signer, and we have in this provider dot get signer. Once we have the signer, we can easily able to get the contract, which we have in this fetch contract, and that we have to pass the signer because our fetch contract function needs signer or provider, and that's what we have passed here. So this will create a particular reference for that user who will interacting with the function. Okay, so we'll pass signer. So that's the entire connection from the user to the contract. So once we have built the connection, we can simply able to create the item. So we can call it create item, and in that we're going to call the contract await contract, and we have to call the function name we have in the contract. So in that we have to simply pass the data. So we'll pass the data to receiver, we'll pass the data to pickup time, and this time is going to be in timestamp, so we have to convert that time. Okay, so that's why we are using this new date, and we're going to pass this pickup time, and we'll say get time. So this will convert the time in timestamp. Okay, so we have converted the time. Now we have to take the distance, and we have to take the price, but here we have to convert the price in ether. We're not doing any transaction in way, we are doing in ether, although you can do in terms of way, but I will go with the ether term. So we'll say utils parse unit price ether, and we have to define the decimal points, and we're gonna simply provide the value, the amount, because the price and the value, they have to match. Then the transaction and the condition we have built, it will execute, otherwise the transaction will fail. So in that we have to pass the price and the decimal points, and that's it. Here we're going to simply call this create item await because we have to wait for a few time once the transaction is written on the blockchain, so we have to wait for it. That's why we have used the wait functions. Once we have done that, now we have to simply check this console the items, and we're going to take this catch blocks if anything goes wrong, and we'll say when it's wrong something, and that's the entire function we have written for creating the shipment. So hope everything you have understood what we have done here and how we have written all of these logics. So that looks pretty fine. Now let's write the second function we have called get all shipments. So this will allow us to get all the shipments which the user will create in our DApp, so we can fetch it from the contract and we can display in our front end. So it's going to be an async function. We don't need to pass any argument into that. We have to simply make this try and catch block, and we have to take the provider because we need a provider, and for that we're going to use this ether.provider.rpg JSON RPC provider. So again, I'm telling you, if you guys haven't watched the ether.js complete tutorial, and that I have explained every single thing about this provider, I'm using the functionality which comes with the ethers package. So we got the provider, and now we have to simply get the contract, and we have to simply pass the provider in our fetch contract. And the one thing you have to notice that when you try to retrieve data from the contract, you don't need to build the connection. Like in the other function, when we are creating the shipments, you can see that we are getting the signer, and that signer we are passing into the fetch contract. But when you try to get the data without making any changes in the state variable in the smart contract, you can just get the provider like this. And that's what I have done here. So we have the contract, and now I can straight away call the function. So we'll say shipments await, and in that we'll have the function get all transactions. This will give me all the transaction, the shipments, and we have to simply map over it because this data will come in the form of array. So we have to arrange the data. You can go without arrangement, but it will become very hard when you will render data in the front end. So it's always better that you have to rearrange the data the mode in such a way which you want to display. So let's rearrange that. So we'll say shipment map shipments, and it's going to be an object type. So we're going to convert the data into an object format. So the first one we'll have is the sender, and this data we have in this shipment.sender. Then we'll have the receiver, and we'll have the receiver. Then we'll have the price, and we have to convert the price into the form of ether. So that's how we can do it. We have the pickup time, we have to convert that into a number. We have the delivery time, we have to do the same thing with this. And we have the distance, convert that into a number. Then we have the is paid, whether it's true or false. So that's the one we have to get. And here we have the status, is going to be a status. And that's the entire data arrangement we have. So looks fine to me. Now let's come here, we have to return the entire data. So we'll have all shipment, and that's the thing we have to do. And now we have to simply close it by catch. If anything goes wrong, we have to throw the entire error message. So this is the message we want to display. And that's the second function we have for getting all the data from the contract. Looks fine. Let's write the third function we have called get shipments count. So this will allow us to get the shipment, that how many shipments user have done. So it's going to be async sync function, and again we are not making any changes in the state variable, so we don't need to pass any argument. We have to build a condition. So first thing we have to do is we have to get the wallet address. So we'll say window.ethereum return in install MetaMask. So if a user don't have the Ethereum object in the browser, that means he or she doesn't have any kind of web3 wallet in the browser. So first thing we have to install the browser, then they can interact with the contract. So that's why we are making if statements. So once we're done with that, we have to simply get the accounts. So this is the way how we can get the account, and that we're going to call this method eth account. So this will give the account in terms of array. Once we have the account, we'll take the first account from this accounts array. But before we do that, we have to build the provider. So we'll say provider new. That's how we can get the provider, JSON RPC provider. And once we have the provider, we have to get the contract. We have to pass the provider into the fetch contract. So that's what we have here. And here we're going to call this shipments count await contract, and in that we have to pass the account address. Okay, and we're going to pass the first account. So this will say 0. So in this way we get the address of the particular user who try to know that how many shipments he or she has created. So that's the shipments we have here, and now we have to simply return the shipment count, and we have to convert it to a number. That looks pretty fine, and we have to check for the error handling as well. So error went getting shipments, and that's pretty fine. So that's the entire function, very simple function. What we have done, first we have tried to identify whether the user has MetaMask or any other web3 wallet or not. If he or she doesn't have it, then we have to throw the error message. If they have, then we have to simply get his wallet addresses, and we have to pass into our contract function so we can get the data from that particular user. So that's the function we have here. Now let's try the fourth function. We'll say complete shipment. So this will allow us to change the status of the shipment. So we'll say complete shipment, and that again we're going to take the data in form of object. So come here, we have to console log out the entire complete shipment data. Now we're going to take this const receiver index, because that the data will come in the form of object, and that's what we have to deconstruct. And these are the two data we're going to pass into our contract function. So let's come here, we're going to take this try and catch. We'll say if window.ethereum not there, then we have to throw the error message here. Now we have to take this const accounts, so we have to get the account of the user. So we're going to simply call the same method get eth account. So here we have the accounts of the user. Account of the user will say const web3 model, and we have to create the connections. And you can see that this time we are taking this web3 model because we have to make the connection, and this time we are changing the state variable in the contract. That's why we need a signer. Now we have to get the connection. So this is how we can get the connection, web3 model.connect. Once we have the connection, we have to take the provider from there, and we're going to use the ether package, and that we're going to pass the connections. Now we have to get the signer, which we have inside the provider. Once we have the provider, we have to get the contract, and that we're going to pass this fetch contract will pass this signer, and this will give us the contract. And we can come here, we'll call the function transaction await contract, and this is the function we have in the contract, complete shipment. And now we have to simply pass the data. So the very first data we have to pass the account, that's what we need, the one who is trying to interact with the contract, the signer, the sender. Now we have to pass the receiver, this will come from the input, and we have to pass the index of the user. And here we have to simply set the gas limit. So one of you have asked me that when you try to call a functions where you are making the changes in the state variable in the contract, some of you are getting an error called gas limit. So this is how you can configure. Sometime it will throw you an error, sometime it will not. So in case you are getting an error, it always be a safer side for you to define the gas limit in the function. So I'm going with this gas limit. You have to check from your end that what gas limit it's want for your function. Okay, so that's the important things you have to keep in mind. So I'm providing this general gas limit. It works most of the time, but if it will throw an error, I definitely play with this value to find out the perfect one for the gas limit. Okay, so that's the gas limit we have here. And once the transaction get complete, we have to say transaction wait, and we have to simply console log out the transactions, and we have to close the try catch block. Console log out the error wrong complete shipment and error, the entire error object, and this looks fine. So this is the complete shipment function we have. Now let's come here. We're going to take the another function called get shipment. So this will allow us to get the data for the particular shipment. So in this we have to pass couple of data. So we need to pass the index. So we'll say console log index. We have to convert that into a number because we can't pass it as a string because it's a UNT variable. And here we're going to take this try and catch block, and we're going to need a account address, the one who's interacting. And once we have that one, and this is the same logic we have to follow to get the user wallet address, and this is the method we have to call. So once you start working with these packages, you will remember all of the function, all of the method, and you can easily able to write it straight away without looking at the documentation. But if you are working with for the very first time, at that time you have to go through the documentation. So that's the account we have here, and now we have to get the provider, and we'll get it very easily. The same logic we have to follow here. Once we have the provider, we have to fetch the contract. We'll pass the provider, and this is the contract we have, and in that we have to simply call the function await contract dot get shipment, and in that we have to pass the data. We have to pass the account address and the index, and we have to multiply with 1 so we can convert it into a number. So that's the only thing we have to do. And here we're going to simply say shipment list. So again we have to format the data in such a way so we can display into our front end. Okay, and that's what we're going to do it. So we're going to take the shipment, and here we're going to simply take this sender is going to be a shipment address. This is the receiver, and that we'll have the shipment index 1. We'll have the pick and time, we'll have this shipment index 2, and we have to convert this. We'll have the delivery time at index 3. We'll have the distance index 4, and we have the price. We have to convert it into ether, and that we have in the index 5, and that's the status we'll have in the 6th place, and the last one we have is the 7 paid. So this is how we can format the data. So if you console log out the shipment data, you will find that it will come in the form of array, and that's what we have done here. So we have taken the data from that multiple array, and we have formatted in a nice way so we can render in our front end. And we have to simply return the entire single shipment, and we have to simply close the catch block with this error message. Okay, so that looks pretty fine. Hope the entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. These are the very simple JavaScript logic we are building here to interact with the contract and formatting the data in the contract from the contract we are getting. Now let's come here we have to build one more function which is called start shipment, and this function will call after the shipment is created, because no one can complete the shipment unless or until the shipment is started. Okay, so let's write the function. We'll say start shipment. It's going to be an async, and that we're going to take this get product, so we're going to have to need a product details to start, and we're going to take this deconstruct receiver and index, and these are the two data we need in our start shipment. We'll take this try and catch block, and in that we have to check for the account address, because we need the signer as well, the one who's interacting with the contract. So that's how we can get the address of the user who is interacting with the contract with this method eth accounts. So once we have the accounts of that particular user, and we're going to build this web3 model, the connections, we'll build the connections, and we'll say web3 dot connect, the same old logic we are following here. So let me write it very quickly. Provider new ethers dot provider, and we have to pass the connections. We have to get the signer which we have inside the provider. Once we have the signer, we have to pass this in fetch contract signer, and that's how we can able to interact with the contract. Once we have the contract, we're gonna simply call that. So contract dot shipment start shipment, and in that we have to pass the data. So the data we have to pass is the account, the one who's interacting with the contract, the receiver, and we have to pass the index. We have to convert it into a number, and that's it. So once we have the data, we have to simply await for the transaction to be completed, and we're going to simply console log out the shipments, and that's the only thing we have to do. And we have to close the catch block, sorry no shipments, and the entire error message, and that looks pretty fine. Hope this thing makes sense. That's a simple logic we have built. Now let's write two common function for connecting our DApp with the smart contract: check wallet connection and connect wallet function. Now we have to write the most common function in the DApp which allow us to connect with the wallet. And if you guys want me to convert this function into a npm package, then do let me know in the comment section, so we don't need to write again and again the same function for every single DApp. We can convert it into npm packages, and whenever we want to call this function, all we have to do is to import the package and we can have that functionality. So do let me know if you guys really want, then I can build that npm package so you guys can follow that. And you guys will also learn that how to build an npm package in web3 space. So let's write the function connect. We'll say check if wallet connect. So I'm going to write the function very quickly, because this is the same function we have written almost 20 times in all the previous projects. So again, we have to check for the MetaMask connections, whether they have the MetaMask or not. Once they have the MetaMask, we have to get the accounts. This will be in form of array, so we're going to call the same methods eth account, and once we have the account, we have to simply check for the length. So if account dot length, if there is more than one account, then we have to simply set the account, set current user account to 1, the first account. Else we have to throw this error message, return this error message no account, and that's pretty much. And then we have to simply close this catch block, and that's the only thing we have to do for getting the address of the user. So that's the function we have. Now we have to simply create a function which allow the user to connect the DApp with click function. Okay, so we'll say connect wallet. It will have this async behavior. Then we have to try and catch, and we have to check for the Ethereum object in the browser, and if we found that, then we have to if we don't found that, we have to say install MetaMask. Then we have to get the account, and this time the method we're going to call is different from eth accounts. So this time the method we're going to call is called eth request accounts. So there is a two different thing, okay, because this time we're going to make the request on click event, and that one is automatically run whenever the browser will load. Okay, so this time we are making the request on click event. So here we have the account. Now we have the set user account. We have to simply set that one, and we have to close this catch block, and we're going to simply throw this error message. So that's the current wallet function we have. Hope this thing makes sense to all of you guys. Now we're going to say use effect, and the first function we have to call is check if wallet is connected, because this function will call every single time someone will come to our DApp. So we'll say check if wallet connections, and that's the function we have to call, empty array. So that looks pretty fine, and now we have to simply return the entire function and the data we have created. And we have to take the tracking context, the one we have built above. We'll say provider, and inside that we're going to take this value, and whatever we're going to pass inside this value, it could be a function name, it could be a data type. That's all we have defined, that's all we're going to pass inside this value, so we can receive this in the entire application. So let's pass that one. So we'll pass the connection wallet, this is the function we have created. We'll pass the create shipment, we'll pass the get all shipment, we'll have this function called complete shipment, we'll have this function called get shipment, and we'll have this function start shipment, and we'll have this get shipments count, and we have this one DApp name, and we have the current user. So these are the function at the data we are putting into our context, so we can receive in our DApp. So let's simply come here, close this one, and here we're going to pass the children, because this will become what's, because all the component we're going to define is will be in the children, and we can easily able to receive the data. So that's the entire logic. So that's the children we have, and now we have to close our tracking context, and that's the only thing we have to do inside this tracking.js. So we have built the core functionality of our DApp. We have written all the functionality which is required us to interact with the contract, fetch the data, create the tracking, complete the tracking, get the tracking data, all of the things we have done. So this is the entire data we have written. This is the fetch contract function we have, and we have this one. You can see this is the create shipment we have, get all shipment we have, get shipment count, complete shipment count, get shipment. We have this start shipment, we have this check wallet if connected, and we have the wallet connected. So we have written all of this function, and I believe that you guys have got the idea that how we have built the logic. Okay, so if you still have any confusion and doubt, make sure to rewatch the video. And again, I'm telling you that all the starter file is already provided to all of you guys, so make sure to visit daulathussain.com. there you will find the starter file, and you can have a look for all the assets. Thus looks here. Now we are done with this. Click here, and we are done with the entire context, and now we have to do a little bit configuration before we move to the next part. So simply close this one, come back to the pages, and here we have to configure our provider, because this one is the most important things. So here we are in the app. Here we're going to write the internal import, and we'll say import that's coming from context tracking, and come back to the here, and here we're going to take this tracking provider, grab this one, copy this one, come back to the app, and here we're going to import it, and we're going to write the entire application with this tracking provider, so we can receive and have the data in every single component. So we'll say take this block, and we'll say tracking provider, and inside that we're going to take this component page props and remove this one, and that's the only setup you have to do, and that looks pretty fine. Now what we have to do is come back here, close this one, and come back to the component section, and now we have to create all the components file for our DApp. So let's create that in the components folder. So let's create the complete shipment.js. so this is the first component, and we have to type RAFCE, and this is the React functional based component we have created. So this is the first component we have. Now we have to create another one. This is the footer component, and this is the footer one, and now we have to create the third one. This is the form component, RAFCE. This is the footer for a form component. Now we have to create the get shipment component, RAFCE. I'm going a little faster because these are the simpler thing which we have done a lot of time in the past, and that's the structure I'm following. Let's create another one. This will become a navbar component. Let's create another one. This is the profile JSX, and come here, we have to create another one. This is a service.jsx. Looks fine. Now we have to create another one, start shipment. That's the good one. Now let's come here, let's create a table JSX, and I think we are done with this. Now we have to create one more file. This is called index.js, and that we index.js, yes, and that we're going to import all the components, and that's the approach I take. So let's quickly import. So let's come here. This is look good, everything's looking good. We have all the component which we need, and if we find that we need anything else, then definitely we can come and we can create that. So close this one and let's come here, and I'm going to provide you this CSV files because in this project we are using icons. So you will get all these icons and the images which I have used in this project in the startup file. So make sure to download that, which I will provide you in the website. Okay, so make sure to download it from there. So this is the folder in which I have all the CSV files. So I'll simply close this one, and if I open this, you can find that FOT1 means that's the icon for the footer. So we have 2 icons for the footers, 3 icons for the navigation, and we have 1 for the close icon. So all of this data is already provided to you in the startup file, so make sure to get it from there. So all of these things we have here, this is the icons we have, 2, 3, this is the cross icons, and looks fine. Hope this entire thing makes sense. And now we have to simply import that. Come back in index.js, and here we're going to import all the components including the CSV files. So let's import that footer component, and that's coming from there. Let's import the table, import the navbar, import the footer, and we have to import the service, import the profile. Let's import the get shipment, and we have to import the complete shipment, and we have to import the start shipment. So all of these components we have imported. Now we have to import the CSV files, the icons. So let me provide the CSV file. Let's import it, which we have inside the folder CSV folder / the navbar 1, and that's how we can import it. Navbar 2, then we have the navbar 3, and we have to import the footer 1. We have foot 2, and the last one we have is this star 1. And once we have the entire import is done, now we have to export the component. So we'll say export, and let's export that footer, table, navbar, form, service, profile, get shipment, complete shipment. We have the start shipment, and we have to export the CSV file, navbar 1, nav 2, nav 3, foot 1, foot 2, and we have the service as well. So these are the entire import and export we have done, and it's become very easy when you export all the component which you need in your entire DApp and export it from a single location. So it becomes very identical, and you know that where you have imported and where you are exporting. So that looks pretty fine to me. Everything is looking good. No more issues we have here so far. Things look pretty fine. Come here, and this is the component we have. This is the app.js. This one is also looking pretty good, and here we're going to import the navigation, navbar, and footer bar, because that's the 2 components going to be in every single page. So let's import the navbar and footer. It's going to be in every single page. So that looks pretty fine, and let's come back to the component, and we're going to simply wrap that and come here, and we have to provide the footer down here. So that looks pretty fine, pretty promising. Close this one and come here into the index, and now we can start working in our index file. Okay, so before we start writing, let's have a look. Let's test this out, that everything's working or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply type npm run dev, and we have to open the application in localhost 3000, and you can see everything is working fine. We have no error. So our import and export is working fine. Our context is also set. We have the navbar, we have the index, we have the footer. Everything looks pretty good. This looks pretty good for me. And now we can start working in the component section. So we have done so far, we have built the entire architecture of our DApp, folder and file structure. We have done all the configuration. We have written the smart contract, we have built the folder, we have built the context, we have written the entire functionality, the core functionality of our applications. Looks pretty fine to me. Now close this one, come here, come back to the context, and here you can see that. So this is also done. We have written all of these functions, we have done all of these functions. Okay, so Just a moment. That's the only thing I want to cover in this video, in the first part of this project. In the next part, we're going to start building the front end of our DApp. So hope whatever we have covered so far you guys have understood. If you guys found anything error, then make sure to rewatch the tutorial to understand everything. In the next video, we'll start building the front end, and we're going to connect all the function we have built. So let's move to that. All of you, hope you guys are great. Welcome back to part 2. In the first video, we have built the entire core functionality of our tracking DApp. We have written the smart contract, we have written the context management, and we have built all this folder and file structure, and we have done the configuration in the contract. So if you haven't watched the first part, make sure to watch it, because we are building this DApp project in 2 parts. In the first part, we have built the entire system, and now we're going to design the front end. So this is where we left in the last video, and if I show you, because I have already started the applications, this is how it looks right this moment. So this is where we left in the last video. We have the snap bar, index, and footer. So now we're going to start working on the very first page. Come back to index.js and let's write the code for our index page. So we're going to import couple of things from React: use state, use effect, and use context, and that's coming from React. Now we're going to do internal imports. In the internal import, we're going to import the first thing, we have to import the tables, because in this DApp we have already built the folder and file structure, all the tables component, but we haven't written any code into that table. So let's import that for the safer side, and we're going to add the code one by one. So we need tables, we need form, we need services section, we need the profile section, we need the complete shipment section, we need the get shipment, get start shipment, and these are all coming from the components index. So hope if you haven't watched the last video, make sure to watch, then this will make sense. Now we have to import the tracking context, because this will give us the data about our entire context management, which I have explained in detail in the first part, and that's coming from the context, tracking context. So these are the imports we have. Now we have to take this index, because we're going to build this page. So we'll say const index, and in that we're going to write all the logics, all the functionalities. So what I will do, I'm going to take this and I'm going to take the data. So let's take the data. We'll take the current user address, whoever will interact with the applications, and these all data is coming from the create context. Okay, so let's import the data, then we'll import the context. So then we have to take the create shipment. This is the function we have exported in the last video, so make sure to watch it. Then we have this get all shipment, complete shipment, we'll have the get shipment, we'll have the get start shipment, we'll have get shipment count, and these all functions are coming from use context, tracking context. So we have all the functions with user address. Now we're going to take this state variables, and in that we have to store data. So we'll take a state variable called current shipment models and state shipment model, and initially it will be false, because every single model services will have its own model box. So when you click on that, it will open a pop-up and you can type the data and it will give you the data. Okay, so that's the approach I'm taking. So this is the first state variable we have. Now let's take the another one. We'll say open profile. Initially it will be false. Now we'll take this start model and it will be false initially. Then we have this another one. We'll take complete model and set complete. Initially it will be false. The last one we have to take get model, and this will be false. And these are the state variable we have taken. Now we have to take the data state variable. In that we're going to take this all shipments data. It will become in the form of array. So in this we're going to store that one. So that's the state variable we have for the data for the one. Now we'll come here and we're going to take this use effect, and in that we have to call the function when someone reload the browser. So that's why we are taking use hook. We'll say const get campaign data, and we're going to call this function get all shipments, and in that we're going to simply return this. We have to use this async behaviors because there is a synchronous behavior is going on. That's why we have to utilize it. And in that we're going to simply take this. We'll say const all data await get campaign data. So this is what we have to define and call it. And once we have the data, we have to simply store the data. So we'll call set all shipment data, and in that we have to pass all the data. And remember that this data will get in the form of array, and it will set in our state variable. So it becomes very easy for us to render. And that's why I mentioned in the last video that it's always very important that you have to rearrange the data, you have to format the data before you actually render in front end, and we have done already in the last video. So that's why it's pretty easy for us to set the data, and that's what we're going to return it. So that's the first use state we have. Now we're going to simply close this one, and we're going to return this, and now we can start writing the JSX. So we'll say return, and in this we're going to take this code block, main block, and inside that we're going to define all the component. So the very first component we have the services, and that we will have all the services this particular DApp provide. So that's the component we're going to import, and that we're going to pass the data, the props. So first thing we're going to pass is set open profile. That's the first props we'll pass. The second props will pass this complete model, set complete model. That's the second one. Get model, set get model props, and the last one is going to be start model props. And these are the props we are sending in services section. So that looks fine. Now this is the first component we have. Now let's take the second one. We have table component, and that we have to pass the props. So this will have the data set create shipment model. That's the props we'll pass, and we have to also pass the all data, all shipment data, and these are the two props we have to pass. Now let's take the fourth one, the form, and in that we have to take this create shipment, and in that we have to pass this props. We have to pass this function create shipment form. We'll pass this set create shipment model, and these are the props we are sending. Now let's come to the profile component. We'll say open profile. That's the prop we have to send. Now we have to set open profile, and we'll say user, current user, and we'll have the get shipment counts, and these are the profile component. Now let's come here. We're going to take this complete shipment component, and that we have to pass the complete model. We'll pass the set complete model. We'll pass the complete shipment, and we have to simply close this one. So this is the complete shipment model we have. Now we'll come here, we'll take this get shipment, we'll take this get model, we have this set models, we have the get shipment, and we have this one. That looks pretty fine. Let's take the last one, is going to be a start shipment. Will be have this start model, sorry, and we'll have the start model. Both are the one we are taking. Now we'll take this start shipment, and that's the start shipment model we have, and that's what we're going to close it. So this is the entire code we have written, and now we have to simply export this one. So this looks pretty fine to me. You can see we have written the entire code for our index. All we have to do is to build the component, and it will reflect in our front end. So this is the import we have done. This is the context we have. You can see we have all the components working fine. We have navbar, services, table, form, profile, complete shipment, get shipment, start shipment, and footer. So let's start with the navigation bar first. So here we are in the navbar component, and now we have to import couple of things from React. So let's say import use effect, use state, and use context, and that's coming from React. Now we have to import the tracking context, and that's coming from the tracking context. And now we have to import the icons, and that's coming from the component index. Now we have to export the entire component. Default export we are using. You can use a functional based component, but I'm going with this approach. So we'll say we'll take this const set and set state. We'll take this false. Now we're going to take this variable, so we have to import the data from our context. So we'll take this user, we'll take this connect wallet, and that's coming from our context. So that looks fine. These are the data we have. Now we're going to write the navigation bar. So we're going to define in the form of object. So we'll say navigation. Let's define an array. Inside that we have the objects. We'll say title, home, and path. This. Let's do the other services. We'll have this will be called contact us. This will be the ERC20, and that's the navigation we have. You can add whatever you want. It's totally up to you. So this is the navigation we have. Now we have to take this use effect, and inside that we have to take this document on click E, because we have to open the nav and close the nav. That's what we have to do, because we're going to have a two different navigation, one for mobile and one for the desktop. So we'll say contracts target e.target. We'll say if target dot close, then we have to call this class. So basically I'm using a Tailwind CSS classes here, and that's what approach I have taken. Make sure to you have to take the same approach, and we'll set state is going to be a false, and that's it. Okay, so here I'm targeting based on the class and then changing the state. So hope hope you guys understood that what we have done. First we are running this use hook, calling on the document on click and getting the target, and we are simply looking for this closest one, and whatever we find closes this class, we have to change the state to false. That's simple. We're going to take this return and we're going to write the entire JSX. So let's write it very quickly. So we're going to take this navbar. Inside the navbar we're going to take this class names, and we're going to define all the classes. So we'll have the background white, padding bottom 5, and on the medium devices we'll have this text small, and here we're going to add a dynamic classes. So we'll take this template literal and we'll say if state is true, then we have to add this shadow class, shadow large, rounded XL, border mx2, mt2. mt basically is stop, x is mx is the right and left. Okay, so hope you guys not get confused about these classes, and if you really want to know about all the classes which I'm utilizing for styling, make sure to check the Tailwind CSS documentation. Simply paste the name and you will know that what we are typing and what it does. Let's take on the media screen we have to define the shadows none, border none, and we have mx2 and md top 0. So that looks fine. Now else we have to say nothing. So this is our dynamic classes. Closest one. Now we have to take a div. It will have the class, we'll have gap XL 14, we'll have item center, we'll have max width screen, XL or MX auto, padding X4. On medium devices we'll have flex, padding X8, and we'll take another div. Inside that it will have a class called flex item center, justify between, padding Y5. On the medium device we'll say block. We'll take another anchor tag. We'll take a anchor tag. We have to define the href attribute. I'm going with this normal JavaScript valid operator. You can type this one or you can type normal hash, both will work in the same way. So let's come here. We have to define the image, so it's going to be our logo. So here we're going to take this logo. So this is the logo which I found in one of the components, so that's the same logo. I'm going to import it, or you can design your own personal logo here. So this is coming from floated UI logo CSV file, and we have to define the width and we have to define the height as well, 50. We have to simply define the alt class float UI logo, and we have to simply close this one and close this one, and we're going to take another div. It will have a class, and the classes will take on the medium devices. We're going to hide this particular div we are creating on the medium devices. We're going to hide that one. So we're going to take another button. We're going to take a button, and it will have the class. We'll have the class called menu button, and this is the class we have targeted above. We have taken that document on close and the class we have given. That's what we are targeting. Text gray 500, and this 500 you can able to find in the Tailwind CSS. Again, I'm telling you that once you build this component, go and simply copy this entire classes and paste and check that what property they have applied into this classes. That will be really helpful for you, and you guys are able to remember this. Why I'm able to remember this, because on my other screen I have the entire design and I'm simply looking at the design, so I can know that these are the classes I have to apply. I have to add an over effect, so it will have text gray 800. We'll have the on click functions, and in that we're going to call this function set state, and we have to change it. So that's the button we have, and that we have to display the text. So it's basically we have to display the icon. So we'll say state nav1, else we have to do the nav2. So if it's true, then we have to display in the nav1. If it's false, then we have to display the nav2. That's so simple. It's basically an icon. And we're going to close this one button, and we're going to close this div. We're going to close this one as well. Now take a div, it will have a class, and we have to take this dynamic block, because here we're going to add a classes based on certain conditions. So we first will have the normal class flex1, item center, margin top 8, on the medium devices margin 0, medium flex. And this is the dynamic class. We'll say that if state is true, if his state is true, then we have to add this class block, else we have to type this hidden class. Looks fine to me. Close this one, and now we have to take a UL, because we have to display the list menu. It will have a class called justify center, item center, space y6 on the medium devices flex, and space 6 and space y0. We'll take this navigation, and we're going to simply loop over it, and we're going to take this return, and we have to return this entire items. So we'll take this li, we'll have to assign a key, otherwise React will throw us the warning. And it will have a classes called text gray 700, over effect text gray 900. That's the li, and we have to take this anchor, and in that we have to simply provide the path and the class block. So in that we have to provide the data, so item title, and that's the only thing we have to do. Simply close this one. So that's the li, and it will render the entire li document. That looks pretty fine. Come here, we have to simply close the return, and we have to close the dynamic block, and we have to close this ULI as well. Looks fine to me. So hope this entire thing making sense to all of you guys. You guys understand that what we are doing exactly here. Now come here, we're going to take another div. It will have a class called flex1 gap 6 item center, justify end, margin top, space y6 on the medium devices flex, space y0, medium top 0. That's the classes for the div. Now we're going to take this current user, and this is going to be a dynamic one. So if the user is connected with the wallet, we have to display. If the user is not connected with the DApp, our application, in that scenario we have to display the connect wallet function, the button, and if the user is connected, we have to display his address. So that's why we are taking this dynamic block. So we'll say current user, and we'll say if there is no data, if there is a current user exists, then we have to display his address. So we'll take this class, and we'll say flex item center, justify item center, gap x1, padding y2, padding x4, and text white, font medium, bg gray, over effect we have to change this to 7, and active rounded full, and the medium devices inline flex. So all of these classes we have, and in that we have to simply display the current user, and we have to slide this down, because if you want to display the entire address is pretty huge and it will take a lot of places. So it's always better that you have to slice it down to 20 characters or 25 characters. It's totally up to you. So my UI is totally working fine with the 25 characters. That's why I'm going with this 25. And we're gonna simply close that this will, and now we have to other dynamic. If the user address is not exist, then we have to display this button, and this button will have the on click function, and on click function we're going to call this connect wallet function. We already have built the functionality, so we have to simply call this function, and we'll have a class called flex item center, justify content gap 1, padding y2, padding x4, text white, font medium, bg gray 800, and over effect we're going to add this activities. The same classes you have to apply: rounded full, and in medium devices inline flex. Now we have to simply close this one, and inside the text we have to write, let's say, connect wallet, and we're going to provide this nav bar 3 icon. Actually an arrow. That's what we are going to define it. So that looks fine to me, and close the button. So this is our button component we have. Close this dynamic block. Let's close this div and close this one. Close this one. Close this navigation bar, and that's look good. So you can see this is the entire code we have written for our navigation bar. Hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. And now let's test this out, that whether it's working or not. So let's have a look, quick look, that are we missing anything or not. So this looks pretty fine. You can see everything's working fine. Now click on this, and we're going to write on the other component. Let's check this out. We have beautifully designed our navigation bar. We have the logo, we have the menu items, and this is the button we have created for connect wallet function. Everything's working fine, and the moment I will click on this connect wallet function, it will open this MetaMask because we have already built the functionality, and all we have to do is to type the password. So let me do it very quickly. And let's click on this unlock, and here you can see we have this address. So all the logic we have built is absolutely working fine. If I do the inspect element, it's 100% responsive for all the devices. You can see everything's looking fine. It's very responsive. You can see everything's working fine. So hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you. Now let me make a big screen and let's start working on the other components. So this is where we left. Now simply come here, go back to the footer, because this is the one we have to work on it. Now let me start working on the JSX part. So from this component I'm going to work a little faster, okay, because we have to build the front end. So I'll go a little faster. So if you guys find that I'm going a little faster, then you can simply do the adjustment in the speed in the YouTube setting. So click on that and make it slow or faster if you think I'm going slow. To import the component from React, we have to import the icons, okay, footer icons, and that's coming from the component index. So now we have to say export default, and we have to write the entire JSX. So we'll say const footer, define the menu for the footers. So it's going to be an object type. So let's say href java. So this is the link. We'll take the name. So let me write down very quickly. So the second one is going to be the name is going to be something like, give whatever name you want, license. Close this one, href. We'll take the name is going to be a privacy. We'll take the name about us, and that's the entire menu we have for our navigation bar for the footer. So let's close that one, and we have to return, and let's write the JSX for the footer. So what are we going to do? We're going to take this footer tag, and we will have this class. Let's assign the classes. So padding top is going to be 10, so we'll have some space from the top, and we'll have this div. It will have a class called max width screen XL, max auto, padding Y, padding X4, text gray 600. On the medium devices, padding X is going to be 8. Inside that, we're going to take another div. It will have a classes called justify between. On the small screen, we will have this flex, and we'll have another div. It will have a classes called space Y6. Inside that, we're going to have this image for our logo, footer logo, and it's going to have this. I'm going to provide the same image logo, and it will have a class called width 32. Looks good. And now we have to define the text for the application. So we'll take this p, and we'll have a class max width medium, and we'll say type this text. So let me type it very quickly. So that's the text for our DApp. You can type whatever you want. Let's come here. We're going to take this UL, and in that we're going to display our footer navigation. So we'll take this class. We'll say flex wrap item center gap for text small on a small devices text basis. It will have the footer nav, and we're going to loop over it item index. It will have a li class name text gray 800 over text gray 500, duration 150. will have the anchor, it will have a key, it will have a href, item href, and in this we're going to define simply the items. So items name, and that's our footer navigation. Simply close this one. We'll close this li as well, and we have to close this as well, and now we have to close the ul. So that's the entire footer navigation component we have. So this looks pretty fine. Now close the div, take a div, it will have a class called margin top is going to be 6, and this one is going to be for the copyright, and that will say class will text gray 7 font semi bold, and will say get app. And actually we're going to display, before we display the copyright, we have to display the icons. Okay, so those app installation icons we have. So we'll take this div, it will have a class called flex item center, gap 3, margin top 3. On the small screen we'll have the block. Inside that we're going to take this anchor and we'll apply the href to this, and in that we're going to define the footer 1 icon, and we're going to close this one, and we have to display the other icon as well. It will have a class mg0 block and margin top on 3 in the small screens, and we'll say footer 2. And that's the 2 icons we have in the footer. Now we have to close the div, and we have to close the div. Come here, we have to close the div. Now we're going to take a div, it will have a class, we'll say margin top 10, padding y 10, border top. On the medium devices we'll have the text center, and in this we're going to define the p tag, and we're going to display the copyright. Okay, all Daulat Hussain, all right reserve, and we have to simply close this one, close this one footer, and we are done with this. So hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. These are the pretty simple things we have done, and we are repeating same classes to make the stylings happen. Okay, so hope this entire thing making sense. If you guys have any forgot to add anything, or you have written something wrong, make sure to rewatch that. So let's come here and close this one, open this one, and let's have a look before we write the code in other components. Footer is looking absolutely fine. We have the logo, we have the text, we have the list item, this is the copyright section, and this is the icons we have defined. It's 100% responsive in the mobile device as well. You can see it's looking fine, and I think something's wrong in this drop down menu. We'll check that what is the problem. Just for the time being, let's go like this. So this is looking absolutely fine, it's responsive. The only thing we have to work on this, something is wrong, so we'll see what's the matter in that. Let's work in other component. So now we're going to work on the services component. So let's come back, let's come here, we're going to work on the, let's come here, which one we should work. This is the service component we have, and click on this. What we have to do is to import the images. So this images will be provided to you already in the starter file, so make sure to get it from the websites if you haven't got the starter file. So we have to import the images, and now we have to import the image tag, this coming from the Next.js. Now we have to export default, and this is the only component we are exporting from here, so that's why I'm going with this approach. So let's say set open profile, all the props we have sent. So I believe that you have watched the index page configuration, and that we have sent a lot of props in our service component. So that's the prop we are receiving here. So the way, this is the first prop we have, set open profile. The second props we have is set complete model. Third one we have set get model, set start model, and these are the props we have sent into the components. And now we have to simply take this const, and we're going to take the team, because we're going to provide couple of services. Altogether we're going to provide 6 services. So you can go with a normal approach, but here I'm going with this services approach. In that I'm taking an array, and in that I'm going to take all the services. So let's define an object. We'll say avatar, the image of the service, because this image is coming from the images. Okay, so that's the one which I'm taking. You can pass multiple data, but for the simplicity I'm going with a simple approach. Okay, so that's the first avatar. I have to write close to 6, so let me write it down very quickly. So this is image, we have get shipment. The second one we have this, third one we have avatar, image, this called start shipment, and we have avatar image, this is called user profile. All of these images are provided to you, so you can get it. Okay, we'll have this ship count. Now we have the image send, and these are the data we have taken. Pretty simple, not that complicated. So these are the items we have. Now we have to take this one, open model item. So we have multiple boxes in the services component, and we have to open it that. So this is the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to take a if else state approach, and on the base of the click event, the user is clicking on that particular service, I have to open that particular model box, the component. So that's the approach I'm taking. There is a multiple way you can do that, but this is the simplest approach I have taken, and this I have to write less code. So this function will receive the text. So let's write it down. So first thing we have to do is build the statement. So if text is equal to 1, in that context we have to call this, we have to open this particular model, set complete model, because that is on the index 1 positions, and we have to set it to true. Else we have to say if text is true, then we have to open this particular model, set get model true. Else if text is equal to 3, we have to open this particular model, set start model true. Else if text is equal to 4, in that context we have to open this model, set profile, open profile true, and that looks pretty fine. Okay, so this is the simplest function. On the click event we will get the text and the value, and based on that we are opening that particular model, and that's the simplest approach. You can make it more complex by creating a single function for each one of the model, but that's too much work. So we are done with that, and now we're going to write the JSX for the entire service component. So we'll say return, and we'll take this service section, and we will have a class padding y0, padding bottom 14. We'll have this div, it will have a class max w screen xl, max auto, padding xy, on the medium devices padding 8. We'll have the div, it will have the class name margin top 12 sorry 12. I know I'm going a little faster, that's why I'm making this silly sound mistake. I hope you guys can bear that for me. So that's the component we have. Now we have to take this UL, it will have a class grade gap 18. On a small divisor we'll have this grid column 2, medium divisor will have a grid column 3. We'll take this team and we're going to simply map over it, so we're going to loop over it. So items I, inside that we're going to take the li, it will have a key, and it will have the div. This div will have the onClick function, and on the onClick function, the function we have built above, that's what we're going to assign it. So we'll say open model box I+1, so it will start from 1, because like the index will start from 0, so that's why I'm adding 1. So it will start 1 2 3 4 and goes like that. So that's the data we are passing. Now we're going to say class width full, height 60. On a small device we want to make it height to 52. On the medium device the height is going to be 56, and we'll close that one. Inside the div we'll take this image tag and we'll have the images inside the item, so that's what we're going to display. So we'll say source item is going to be avatar. We have to do one thing, and here we're going to find the classes. We'll say width full, height full, object cover, object center, shadow add medium, around XL. These are the classes for the images. We'll say alt is going to be an empty, you can type whatever you want, and that's the image closed. Now we have to close the div as well. We have to close li, and we have to simply close the dynamic block and the UL as well. Close the div, and close the section, and that's the entire component we have written. Okay, pretty simple, not that many code. We have used the components, rendered the items, with all the components functionality. So you can see everything is working fine. Now come here, click on this, and now let's test this out. It's looking absolutely perfect. So this is the services component we have. You can see it's 100% responsive. So this is the navigation, this is the service component. If I do the inspect element, it's 100% responsive. You can see it looks absolutely incredible. It's working like a bread and butter. Okay, it's looking absolutely fine. And if you can see, if I click on this complete model, it will open the form. Okay, it's not working because we haven't worked on the functionality, but it will work absolutely fine when we'll build those component. Okay, we are already connected. If I want to log out from this app, this will also working fine. So let me log out once. So I'll come here, I'll click on this log out, and I'll reload the browser, and here we have the functions. So everything is working fine. Now let's start working on the other component, which is the table component. To the come to the table section. Let's create the export default, and in that we have to receive the props we have sent. So this is the props we're going to receive. First one is set create shipment model, all items, all shipment. Okay, all the data which we're going to pass inside this table component, and that's the export default. Now we're going to take this state variable, const, and in that we're going to take the data. So it will come convert time. So basically what will happen that when we'll get the data from the contract, it will come in the form of timestamp. So we have to convert the timestamp into the readable data so user can understand. Okay, so that's the function we're going to build, convert time. So we'll pass the time into this, and we'll say const new time, and we're going to use this function, JavaScript function new date, and that we're going to pass the timestamp, and we have to do the configuration. We'll say date time, and we'll say new in Intel date time format, and it's going to be in English, US English, and we'll take the year, the numeric, and we'll take the month, we'll take the day, and we're going to simply call the format new time, and we're going to simply return the date time. So that's a pretty simple function, normal JavaScript, nothing related to the smart contract and the DApp development. Okay, we are getting the data in the timestamp, and we are simply converting into the year, month, and date, and that's what we are returning. Looks fine. Come here, and we have to take a console log this all shipment data. All shipment data. Now we're going to write the JSX for the table. So this one is going to be a pretty big one because we have to build the table. So and we have to stylish as well. So it's going to be a biggest component in our DApp. So we'll take this div. It will have a class called max width screen, Excel, max auto, padding x4. On the medium devices we'll have padding 8. We'll take this div. It will have a class called items start, justify between. On the medium devices we'll have the flex. We'll take a div. It will have a class called max wl. We'll take the h3 tag, and it's going to be a heading. So it will have a class. It will say text gray 800, text excel, font bold, and on the small screen we're going to have this text 2x create tracking. We'll close this one, and we're going to take this p tag, and we'll display short information about this tracking. It will have a class. We'll say text gray 6, and margin top is going to be 2, and then that we will write this demi text. You can type whatever you want. So that's the text we have. Close this one. Now we'll take another div. It will have a class. We'll say margin top is going to be 3. On the medium device margin top is going to be 0. Inside that we'll take a p tag, and inside that we're going to add this on click function. We'll say set create shipment model true. So this will open the model, and here we're going to say href. We don't need to redirect anywhere else. We have to assign a classes inline block, padding x4, padding y2, text white, duration 150, font medium, and background is going to be gray 800, and over effect we're going to add this 700, and we're going to set the active state to 9, and text small, and it's going to be a round large, and it will have an inline flex. So all of these classes we have included, and we're going to simply close, and in that we're going to type this add track. So when someone will click on this, it will open the form element and they can fill out the data and they can create the shipment. And that's why we have added this model functions, set create shipment model. So that looks fine. Now come here, we're going to simply close this one. We'll close this div, close this one, and now we have to write a classes. We'll take another div. It will have a class called margin top 12, shadow, border large, overflow x auto. It will have a table class, full width, table auto, table small, table left, text left, sorry, don't table. We'll have this head. It will have a class name bg gray for 50, text gray 600, font medium, border b. We'll have this tr. It will have the tr class name, padding y3, padding 6, sender, and we have to repeat this couple of times. So let me do it very quickly. The same classes we have to apply, so let me write it very quickly. So simply close this one. So hope you have built all of these components. So we are defining the header of our tables, so that looks fine. Come here, now we have to simply close the head. We'll come down here, we're going to take the body, table body, and we'll define a classes. We'll take this text gray 600 divided y, and we're going to take the data. So we have all the data into our all shipment, and we're going to simply loop over it. The reason we have provided this question mark, because sometime the data will come late, and at that time you will get undefined. So if you don't provide these question marks, you will get error. So it's always better to add a guard class in your data. So that's why I have taken this question mark, and we're going to simply loop over it. We'll say shipment and index, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the tr. It will have a key, index, and inside that we're going to take this table body and we'll add these classes, padding x6, padding y4, white space, unwrap, no wrap, and in that we're going to simply display the data. And this will be the sender message, and we are slicing it down to 15 characters, and we have to simply close that one. So this is the first table body. Now we have to take another one for the receiver. We have add the same classes, and in that we have to take the address which we have inside the shipment receiver and slice it down to 15. Now we have to close it. Take another table body. It will have padding 6, padding 4, white space, same classes we have to apply it. And now we have to display the data. So in this we're going to display the pickup time, and that's why. So let's come here, we'll take this table body. We're gonna take this table body classes. Now we have to take the same classes very quickly. We'll display the data, distance in kilometer. Close this one. We'll take another table body and we'll have the same classes. We'll display the price. And this time we don't need to convert the price in ether, because the data we have formatted in our context, we have already converted it into ether, not in way. And that's the best part, when you convert the data right when you fetch it from the contract and export in the entire DApp. Close this one. Take another table body, we define the classes. Display the delivery time. Table body. Take another one. Define the shipment is paid. If it's paid is true, then we have to say complete, but if it's not true, false, then we have to say not complete. Simple if else statement we have written. Close this one and click another one. It will have the same classes, and right now you can see that I'm repeating these components, this body tag over and over again, but you can take it in a array format. You can simply rendering by looping over it, but for the simplicity, for making you understand, that's why I'm going with this approach. Otherwise I can make it in more complex way, and that would help me to write less code. Let's write the status whether it's completed. So if the index of the status, because you know that in the smart contract we have defined 3 different status: the pending, in transmit, and deliver, and each one have the index. Okay, if it's 0, that means we are in the pending mode, but if it's 1, then we are in the in transit mode. If its shipment status is 1, then we are in the transferring mode, means the product is in deliver for ready for deliver, and the final is going to be the deliver one if the index is 2, status is 2. Okay, hope these things make sense, and we're gonna simply close this one. We have to close this entire table, we have to close this dynamic block, and we have to close the table body as well, table tab as well, and table div, and close all the divs, and that's the pretty much. You can see everything's working fine. It's absolutely beautiful, no more error we have. Simply come here, and if you guys have missed something, make sure to rewatch it. Now it's time to check this out, whether we have built the template or we have got any error. You can see it's reloading the browser, and if I scroll down, and it looks absolutely stunning. So we have this title, we have the data, and we have our table, header tables, and right now we don't have any, we haven't created any tracking data. That's why you can see it's totally empty. If you click here, you can see nothing will happen because we haven't wrote the functionality for that, but everything's working fine. Now we're going to work on the form component, and we're going to create couple of tracking product tracking. Okay, so let's come back to the VS and let's start working on the form component. This one, and this time we're going to start working on the form. And here we are. We have to import couple of things from React. So use state, and that's coming from React, and now we have to simply export default, and we have to receive the props. So we'll take this set current shipment model, we'll take this create shipment model, we'll take the create shipment functions, and now we're going to define the data type. So we'll take the const, we'll take a use state, and we'll take this shipment and set shipment. Initially is going to be in form of object, okay, because we're going to take couple of data from the user like address, timestamps, all of these things. So that's why we have taken the data in a state variable, and I'm taking this data in the form of object because when we are receiving this data in our context function for creating a shipment, we are taking in form of objects. That's why I have taken this approach. Let's define all of those fields which we're going to create. So we need the receiver, we need the pickup time, we need the distance, we need the price, and that's the 4 data we need for creating the shipment. We'll come here, we're going to take this const create item, and it's going to be async function, and in that we're going to simply call the function. So we have to take this try and catch block because sometimes things goes wrong, so we have to catch that, and we don't want our application got crash. So in this we're going to simply take this await create shipment because this is the function we have built in our context, and in that we're going to pass the entire shipment items. So we'll say shipment entire object, and we'll simply take this catch error. If anything goes wrong, we have to simply console log out the error message, and that's pretty much looks fine. Now we have to simply write the JSX in which we have to take the info fields, and we have to define the entire layout of our form component. So let's write the JSX part. we'll say create shipment. So this is the approach we are taking. So we'll say create shipment. So what we are doing here, we are saying that if create shipment model is true, then only we have to display the component, otherwise we don't want to display anything. So that's why I'm taking this approach. There is multiple way you can tackle this, but this is the simplest way and the easiest way. So let's have a div. It will have a class called flexed. It will have the inset 0. It will have the z index 10, overflow y auto. This will cover the entire screen. That's why we have used the fixed. Inset 0, that will cover the entire screen, and z index is going to be top, and flex y is going to be auto. So we have to take another div. It will have the class called flexed inset 0 with full, height full, bg is going to be a black, opacity 40. It will have a on click functions. So it will say set current shipment model is to false, because this will open, so it will become true. So we have to, if someone click on that, we have to make it false. And that's what we have. Now we have to simply close this one. We'll take a div. It will have a class flex item center. It will say mean height screen, padding x4, padding y8. And we'll take the div. It will have a class called relative, width full, max w large, padding 4, max auto, background white, and rounded medium, shadow large. And we'll have another div. It will have a class called flex justify end. It will have that button, and in this button we're going to simply display the icon, close icon. So we'll say class pd2, text gray 400, rounded medium, over effect we'll say background gray 100. And we'll take this on click function, and we'll say set create shipment model to false. That looks good. Now we have to take this svg file. So this csv file will be provided to you in the startup file. So all you have to do is to import the component, and you can display that. But I'm going to write it very quickly because I forgot to import it. So we'll say xml, we have to provide this. So let me write the entire icon, because this icon is already given to you. And this icon is already provided to you. Again, I'm telling you in the csv folder. I'll show you which one it is, so you guys can import it instead of writing that one. Okay, so that looks pretty fine. These are the entire csv. Let me close this one and close the button. We can come here, close the div. We have to take a div, and now we have to define the entire body for our cover component. So we'll take a class. It will have a max w sm, max auto, padding y3, space y3, text center. We'll have a h4. It will have a class called text large, font medium, text gray 800. We'll have this track product create shipment. Close this h4 tag. Take this p. It will have a class text 150 pixels, text gray 600. It will have the text, the short description. Close this one. Take a form component, form tag, and we'll have an on submit function, and on that we have to first stop the default behavior of the form. And this is how we can do that. We say e.prevent default. So this will stop the default behavior for submitting the form. And once we stop the default behavior, now we have to take a div. It will have a class. We'll say relative margin top 3, and in that we have to take a input field. So altogether we're going to have 4 input fields, because we are taking 4 data from the user. So type is going to be text. It will have the placeholder. We'll say receiver. It will have the class name, full width, padding left 5, padding right 3, padding y2, gray 500, bg transparent, outline none, border focus border indigo 600, shadow sm, and rounded large. So these are the classes we have. It now, it will have on click function, sorry, on change function, and on the on change function, and it will have a on change property. So whenever someone will pipe anything into the input field, or the user will provide the address of the receiver, we're going to simply update that. That's why we have taken this on change. So we're going to take this, our set shipping state, and we're going to simply update that. So we'll deconstruct the entire, so we'll say dot 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 shipment, and we're going to target the specific object we want to update. So this is what we want to say, receiver, and we'll say e.target.value. So that's how we can update that particular value in that object, and we're going to simply close that one. So that's the first input field we have. That's the first input field we have. Simply close that one and close the div. And that's the exact thing we have to do 4 times for all the components. So let me do it very quickly. The same variables we're going to provide it over and over again. So I'm just pausing my voice for a time, and you guys can type it very quickly. So I'm just pausing it and I'm typing very quickly so you guys can follow that. So this time you have noticed that the type is date, because we have to take the delivery time. Let's assign the classes. Now we have to simply update the data, the time, and the same way we're going to update it. Pickup time, and we have to update the value. Now we'll take another div, and we have to do the same thing, relative top 30. This time tab is going to be text, and the rest would be the same. We have to change the function only, the object, the data we are updating. And we have to simply update that. Now we have to take the last one. And we have to simply update this one, price. Close the div. take a button, and this time we're going to submit this one. Okay, we're going to call this function create item. It will have a classes block, full width, margin 3, and the rest classes is going to be the same which we have applied previously on the button. We'll close the button. Create shipment. Close the button. Form. Close the div. Close the div. Close the div. And the final one is, that's it, empty. So if our model is true, then we have to display, otherwise we don't want to display anything. And that looks pretty fine. And that's the entire form component we have written. Hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. Now come here and let's test this out. And you can see everything's working fine. Reload the browser, and now let's test this out. So if we click on this, the form component will open. So click on this, and here you can see it looks absolutely beautiful. So we have the title, we have the text message, we have this form, we have the date, and we have the distance, we have the price, and this is the one we have. And it's also working fine. So let's create and we have already built the functionality, so we can create the tracking, add the product. So first thing, we have to connect the wallet, and just a moment, and here I have to pass my credential, unlock. So here we have unlocked the credentials, we have connected to the wallet. Now we can say before we make the transaction we have to clear all the history, otherwise we'll get an error. So it'll come here, go back to the settings, into the advanced, come here, click on this clear activities tab data, and that looks pretty fine. Reload the browser, and that looks pretty fine. Click on this add tracking. Here we have the pop-up. So what I will do, I'll come here, go to this one, click on the MetaMask, click on this, copy one, click on this, and now I can make the transaction. So simply pass the address of the recipient. So this is the address. Let me pick up the date. So this is the date I'm going to pick. The distance is going to be, let's say 256, whatever you can type. The price is going to be up to you, 45, and you can click on this create shipment. And here the MetaMask is open, and you can see the thing. You can see 45 ether we are charging for the shipments, and you can click on this confirm, and the transaction is confirmed. If I scroll down here, and here you will find the data. You can see the table component is also working fine. We have fetched the information about the transaction. So this is the sender, this is the receiver, this is the pickup time, and this is the distance. And we have, you can see the time we have converted into a readable time. So we are displaying here, and this is the delivery state. So right now the delivery is not done, that's why it's saying 0. But once the delivery will get completed, you will find the time will say here the paid is not completed yet and pending. So it's also working fine. If you can come here, you can create more. So you can create here, you can pick any other date. So I'll go with simply 15. Distance is going to be 45.6, whatever you type. And this time I will take 23, create a shipment, and you can simply click on this. So just wait, confirm, and the transaction went through, and here you will have the data. So everything is working fine, all the logic we have built. Now we have to work on these components: complete shipment, get shipment, start shipment, and user profile. And these are the optional. You can add more functionality to this, but I'll leave the options for you to come and do the experiment. But let's write all of these 4 components which is left. Come back to the VS. In our VS Code Studio, you can see everything is working fine. Now what we have to do is we have to work on this complete shipment. So before we work on the complete shipment, we have to work on start shipment, because once the shipment will start, then we have to complete it. Okay, that's the logic, that's the simple logic. So come here, get start. Everything is working fine. We can able to render the data into a table component. We can create a shipment. Now we have to work on the component for getting shipment data. Okay, so click on this get shipment, and we have to import couple of things from React use state. And now we have to create this component, default export default, and in that we have to receive the prop. So we need get model, set get model, and get shipment, because this get shipment will have all the data about that particular shipment. So we'll take this const, we'll take this index, because we have to find the shipment based on the index. because every single shipment will have a unique ID, and we are doing on the base of index. You can assign a particular ID, or you can assign a particular user ID or user data which you can take from the user. Okay, so we'll say use state. Initially it will be 0. We're going to take this another one. We'll say single shipment data and set single shipment data. It's going to be use state. So or one single shipment we're going to store, because this shipment is a function. When we'll call that, it will give us an array, and we're going to simply take the data from here and we're going to assign it into this. So just follow along with me. So we'll take this const get shipment data, and we're going to call this async function because we are dealing with the synchronous behavior. We'll add this const get shipment data, and we'll say await get shipment. In that we have to pass the index, so it will return us the data of that particular shipment, and all we have to do is to set the data into our set single shipment data. That's pretty simple, and we have to simply console log out the data, and that's the only thing we have to do. So we'll simply console log out the entire single shipment data. That looks good. Now we'll come here, we'll take a variable called cost convert time, because we have to convert the time into a readable format, because the time will come in form of timestamp. So let's write the simple function convert time, new time, and we're going to follow the same logic we have done previously. So let me write it down very quickly. You can do one thing, you can create a utility function and you can simply import it that, but I forgot to do that. That's why I'm writing this code again. But in the real world, what will happen that you're going to convert these kind of function which you are utilizing in your DApp over and over again into a utility function. So let's return that date, and that's the convert time function we have. Looks fine. Come here, we're going to take this return, and now we're going to write the entire JSX for our DApp for this component. So we'll say get model, the same approach we are taking. If it's true, then we have to display the component, otherwise we'll have to hide the component. We'll take a div, it will have a class flex insert 0 z index 10s overflow y auto. We'll take the div, it will have a class name fix insert 0 full width, full height, background black, opacity 40. It will have a on click function. We'll say set get model false, and we have to close this one. We'll take this div, it will have a class called flex item center, min height screen, padding x4, padding y8. It will have another div, it will have a class called relative, full width, max w large, padding 4, max auto, background white, rounded, shadow large. It will have a div, it will have a class called flex justify end. It will have a button. It will have a class name padding 2, text gray 400, rounded MDM, overflow background gray 100 sorry. It will have a on click functions called set get model false, and we have to type our text. Actually in the text we're going to type the CSV file. So let me show you that which CSV file I'm telling you, okay, because my extension is on, that's why I'm not able to import the component. So what I will do, I'll show you that which CSV file I'm importing writing here. So you can see that this is the component in which we have all of this component. If I open the CSV file, here you will find this is the footer icons we have, this is the navbar icon we have, and this is the exact CSV icon we are typing manually. So my extension is on, that's why I'm not able to stop it and simply import it. But in your course you can simply import this CSV component and you can have it, okay. But in my case my extension is on, that's why I'm not able to do that, so I have to type it. So we have to close this one, we have to close the CSV file, and that's the entire icon we have. We're going to close this button as well. Come here, we're going to take this div, close this div. We're going to take a div, it will have a class called max width small, max auto, padding y3 space y3 text center. It will have a h4, and that we have to display the classes. So we'll have this text large, font medium, text gray 800. Inside that we have to type our text. So we'll type product details, tracking details, and we're going to simply close this h4. We'll come here, we'll take this form, and it will have a on submit, the same approach we are taking, which we have taken in the last component. So that's why I'm going a little faster here. So it will have a relative margin top 3. It will have an input tag because we need to take the number. So we'll take this type is going to be a number because we have to take the index of that particular product details. Let's provide all of these data very quickly. It will have a classes called full width, padding left 4, padding right 3, padding y2, text gray 500, background transparent, outline none, border focus border inline 16, shadow sm, rounded. So many things we have to add. Now we'll have a on change function, and we have to simply take this index and we have to update that. So that's the div we have to close it up. We'll come here, we'll take a button, and we have to take this on click function, and we're going to simply call the function get shipment data, and we have to take the classes block full width, margin 3, y x4, medium, text small, text center, text white, bg indigo 600, overflow we have 500, active indigo 7, round large, ring offset 2, ring indigo 600, focus ring 2. So these are the classes we have, quite unique one, and we have to type our text. So in this we're going to type it's something like get details, because that's what it will give us. Close the button. This is the entire button component. Now we're going to we're going to close the form component, and now we're going to take a dynamic block, and that we're going to display the data of that particular product details. So that's all data we have inside this. So we'll say single shipment data. Inside that we'll take this, because if it's undefined then we have to come here and we have to simply don't need to display anything. But if there is a data, then we have to display the data, and that's how we can do it. That's pretty easy. So we're going to take this div, it will have a class text left, and inside that we're going to take this p sender, and in that we're going to display the data of the sender. And the same thing we have to do here for all the data which we have done and which we have already done in the other component. So let me do it very quickly. We have to take the data of the pick time. We have to pass into the convert time function the timestamp. We have to take another div, p tag, and it will say deliver time, and we have to convert the time into a timestamp. We have to display the distance. We have to display the price and status. So this one is going to be dynamic. If the paid is true, then we have to say completed, but if it's not, then we have to say not completed. And we have to close it, and we have to close the div. We have to close our dynamic block, close the div, and close the div, close one, and close this one, and empty. So hope this entire thing makes sense to all of you guys. These are the things we have written for get shipments. Pretty simple component we have built, which will allow us to call the function to display the data. Now let's come here, and now let's test this out, because we have already created the tracking, product tracking 1, 2, because now let's test this out, because we have already created the product. Let me reload the browser, and right now everything looks fine. You can able to create, and we have already created that. So this is the first tracking, it's on the index position. So this one is a 0 and this one is a 1. You can assign an ID to each one of these, but I'm not going with that approach. I'm taking a simpler approach. So this is the 0 and this is the 1. So the function we have to call is this function get. You have to click on this component, because in this component we have attached the function. So if I call this get shipment, so this will give us the data. So if I click on this, here you have the pop-up. If you click on this, it will not work, because this is the component in which we have attached the function get shipment. So in this I have to pass the ID. So I can simply type 0. If I type 1, it will give me the 1. If you click on this, here you can see I got all of the data. I get the sender, I get the receiver, I get the pickup time, delivery distance, and you can see this is the exact distance we have. So let me scroll down here. This is the exact distance, the one we have assigned 456. But if you assign 0, it will give us the first one. You can see the data is changed to 56. If you assign the first, it will change. So this one is also working fine, and this is the icon which is displaying. It's also looking fine, and this one is also working fine. Now we have 3 more components. So now we're going to start working on the start shipment, then we have to work on this, then we're going to work on that. So that looks fine. Let's come back to the VS and let's start working on the other component. So let's come here. Now come here and we have to go back, close this one, come to this, and we have to work on the start shipment. Click on this, and now we have to import a couple of things from React. So we'll use state, and that's coming from React. Now we have to import the icons. So start one, the cross icon, and that's coming from the index, and let's make it default export. And we have to receive the props. So start model, set start model, start shipment, the function, and here we're going to take this variable. We'll say get product and set product. It's gonna be an object, so in that we have to take the data about the particular product which we want to target, and we have to set that the deliveries got started, because that's what the functionality we are working on, start shipment. So we need the data for that particular product. So let's define that. We need the receiver when we need the index. So these are the 2 data we need for the product. Let's close this out. Come here, and here we have to simply take a variable. We'll say start shipment, and in that we're going to simply call the function. We'll pass the data into this start shipment, and we'll pass the product data, and we have to call it. That's it. And we have to simply build the entire JSX now. So we'll say start model. If it's true, then we want to display, otherwise we don't want to display. So let's build the JSX. We'll say div. It will have a class flexed instance. So the same classes we have to apply, because we want to have a black transparent one. This one is also going to be the same one, full BG background opacity, and we'll have an on click function, so it will turn to false. Okay, set start model will turn to false. Looks good. And we have to simply close the div. The same logic we are following for every pop-up model. Now come here. Here we have to take a div. It will have a class called flex item center, min height screen, padding x4, padding y8. Inside that we're going to take this div. It will have a class called relative, full width full, max width large, padding 4, mx auto, background white, rounded medium, shadow large. And inside that we're going to have this div. It will have a class called flex justify end. Inside that we're going to have this button, and it will have our class icon. So we'll say class p2 text gray 4, rounded medium, over effect we'll have this gray 100. It will have an on click function. On the on click function we have to set the start model to false, because we have to close the model, and we have to simply close this one button, and we have to simply call the icon. So this is the cross icon. In some component I forgot to import, and some component I have imported. So in whichever component I have forgot to import, make sure you have to replace the CSV code with this icon. It will work in the both same way, and all the code is provided. All the startup file is already provided to all of you guys, so you guys simply download that one from my website. We'll come here, we'll take this button, close this one, we'll close this div, and now we have to work on the body. So we'll say class max width small, max auto, padding y3, space y3, text center. It will have h4. We have to provide the headlines. The same classes we have to provide our headline, and we have to say start the shipping. We have to close the h4, and now we have to provide the same description. So now we have to take the form, and so now we have to define the form. So it will have a on submit. We have to stop the default behavior of the form. We'll say div class relative margin top 3. It will have the input, and the type is going to be, let's say, text. It will have the placeholder receiver. It will have the class name full width, padding left 5, padding right 3, padding y 2, text gray 500, background transparent, outline none, border focus, border indigo 600, shadow sm, rounded, large. The same classes we have to apply in every single input field. Okay, so this time I'm going to write it very quickly. So we have to take the data and we have to update into our state variable for get product. So we'll set get product. We'll deconstruct the get product, and we'll take the data we want to update. So we want to update the receiver address, and we're going to set to value, and that looks fine. Looks pretty good. We have to close this one, close this one, close the div, and we have to take another div. We have to take the same input field, this time for the ID. So let me write it very quickly. And we have to update the data. So this time we have to update the indexed, which we have inside this. So we'll say index e.target.value, and we'll have the data updated. And now we have to close this one, and we have to close the div, and now we have to take a button. It will have the on-click function. In that on-click function, we have to call this function we have created, start shipping, and it will have the classes. So the same classes we have to apply for every single button. So let me do it very quickly. And you can think, and you can do in more optimized way. So right now you can see that I'm using a lot of buttons in the DAV, and again and again I'm typing the button component and writing the classes. You can convert this button into a component, and you can import the button, and you can have it without applying these classes. So there's a multiple way which you can do, but I'm going for the simplest approach. I'm going like this, where I can show you that what are the classes exist in the Tailwind CSS, so you guys can get a practice. And the reason why I have taken this approach, because the more you write the same classes over and over again, you get memorized. So when you will build project like this, 2 to 3 projects, and after that everything will be set in your mind, and you can be easily able to utilize it. That's the button we have. Now we have to say get details, close this one, and we have to close the form, close the div, close the div, close the div, close the div, and now we have to send this empty. And that's the entire component we have written. Everything's working fine. You can see we have built all of this component, all of this JSX, and looks fine. And that's the start shipment component we are done. Close this one, come here, and before we write any other component, let's test this out. The browser, things are looking fine, and we are already checked this position, get product details, and we have this one, complete shipment. If you click on that, okay, this one, start shipment. If you click on that, here you can see we have the pop-up. Okay, I forgot to change this one. It's not get details, it's a start shipment, but you can do it from your end. So in this we have to pass the receiver address and the ID. So let's do one thing. This is the one we're going to change the status. and this is the address we have to pass. So I'll click here, and I'll go back to the account number 2 because this is the account number 3 I want. Come back here and reload the browser. So you can see this is the account I'm connected. I click on this, I'll paste the address. This is the address and I have to pass the ID, so I'll paste 0. I'll click on this get details, but you can change this to get shipping start. If you click on this, here we have opened the MetaMask and you can find that this is the contract we are interacting with. Click on this confirm and the transaction went through. You can see the browser reload, that means the transaction went through. If you scroll down here, you can see the status is changed in transmit. So the entire logic is working fine. We have changed the status. So the product is out for delivering, and now we have to work on this complete shipment. So when we click on this complete shipment, so here we're going to update this data. Okay, these are the two data we're going to update. So things are looking fine, promising. We are done with this, you can type it and you can have the data looking fine. You can check this one and you can simply change the status. So now let's start working on this complete shipment component. So let's come here, we're going to click on this complete shipment, click on this, and now we have to import a couple of things from React. So we'll say use state, and that's coming from React. We'll export the component, we'll have to receive the props we have sent. So complete model, set complete models, we have to get the complete shipment function, and we going to say complete shipment and set complete shipment, and it's going to be an object type because we have to take the data for completing the shipment. So in this we're going to take the receiver address and we have to take the address of the index. These are the two data we need for completing the shipment. Let's come here, let's start build the functionality which will call. So we'll say change shipments, change status, and it's going to be async functions, and we have to call the function. So we'll say complete shipment, this is the function we have to call, and in that we have to pass the data in form of object because that's the way we are receiving the data, and then we are deconstructing the data. So if you haven't watched the first part, make sure to watch it because in that I have explained everything. Right now I'm just building the logic, and then I'm going to pass the data, otherwise we have to do anything. And now we have to work on the entire JSX. So if it's true, then we have to display the component, otherwise we don't want to display anything. So true, then we have to build this component. So we'll say div, it will have the classes, and the same thing we have to do, the same classes we have to apply here as well, because this is the pop-up model and this is the overlay div. We have background opacity 40, and we're going to simply provide this on click function. In that we have to set this to false. The same logic we are following. Okay, so I hope by the time we are building this component you guys got familiar with the classes, because we have already built 3-4 components and we have utilized the same classes over and over again. Now we have to take a div, it will have the classes flex, item center, min, height, screen, the same classes we have to apply. Let me write it very quickly. We'll take the div, it will have a class name, relative, full width, max WL large, padding 4, max auto, background white, random, same classes I have to apply. Div will have a class, flex, justify, end. It will have a button, so the close button we have to assign. So this time I forgot to import the close button, close icon component, so I have to type the entire CSV file here, but in your case the CSV file is provided to you. All you have to do is to import it and you have to place it right inside the button. Let's add the classes. It will have on click function, we have to set to false. Inside that we have to take the CSV file, and this CSV file is already provided to you. Now we have to close the CSV. So that's the icon we have. Close the button, close the div, and now we have to start working on the body. So we'll take a div and we have to assign the same classes we have assigned in other pop-up model. So let me do it very quickly. Now we'll take this h4 and we have to assign the same classes. You can see a lot of components we're repeating over and over again. So what you can do, you can convert these component into a you can convert these divs, these blocks into a component, and you can utilize it. But I'm going with this approach. So let's provide this h4 complete shipment, and we'll have this one. Let's take a form, and that we have to stop the default behavior, and we have to take the div. It will have a class relative top 3. It will have an input, and the same input classes we have to assign. So let me assign it very quickly. Or you can do one thing, you can simply copy paste from other components if you don't like to write, but make sure to change the data. On change, and you have to update it the state object we have taken. So take that one, and we have to simply deconstruct that complete shipped, and we have to take the data we want to update. So we'll take this receiver, and we have to set the value, and simply close that one. We need to create one more input field for the index. So let me do this very quickly. Close this one, and we have to close this one, and let's create the another one. So I'm going to type it very quickly. You can simply copy and paste and simply replace the value, but let me write it very quickly, because I'm using an extension, so I cannot copy it. Simply update the index. Close that one. Close this one. Close this. Close this one. We're going to take the button, and we're going to attach the function. So it's going to have the change status functions, and we have to assign the same classes which we assign to every single button. So let's assign it very quickly. Change status, and we'll say close the button. You can type complete shipment, whatever you want. Complete the form, complete the div, complete the div, complete the div, close it, and we have to say this empty. And with that, we are done with this entire block, complete shipment. Hope you guys can follow with me, and everything's working fine. Close this one, and now we can test this out. We are done with this. We can easily able to get that one. Let's test this out. Everything is working fine. This one is also working fine. And if I click on this complete shipment, you can see the pop-up we have. This is the complete shipment, the address, and this what we have to provide it. And this is the change status we have. So what I will do, I'll come here. So this is the one which is in transmitted. Okay. So if I want to change the status of those product tracking which their status is pending, so I'll get an error. I can call this function complete statement in only those product tracking which has the status to in transmitted, because this is the logic we have applied. So if I click on this, and that we have to pass the address, so I'll pass the address of the receiver, and I will go with index 0. I'll click on this change. It will open up the MetaMask, and it will make the transaction. So let me click on this confirm, click on confirm, and here you can see the transaction went through. And if I scroll down here, you will find the data is changed. So this is the timestamp you have got for the particular delivery. This is the paid because we have made the transactions completed, and this is the product is delivered. So the logic is absolutely working fine. If you want to do the changes here as well, you can do that. So first click on this, provide the recipient, and go to the index 1. Click on this get shipment. You can type it start shipment, confirm it, and the browser will reload, and you can see the status is changed. And if you want to convert it, you can simply get the data, you can type it, and you can see the data is updated. So status is 1 means we are in the transaction. You can display the actual like in transmitting that value which we have defined here, this one. Okay, now we have to click on this complete statement. In that we have to pass the address. We'll say number 2 index, not 2, 1 index. Click on this change status, and we have this MetaMask. Click on confirm, and the status is changed and deliver. This looks absolutely fine. Let's create one more very quickly so we can do the further testing. So go to this one, distance is going to be something big. Let's say price is going to be 12, very less, but it's actually too much for in terms of ether. Click on confirm, and the transaction went through. You can see it's pending. All the logic is working fine. Now we're going to work on the last component, which is a profile component, and that's what we're going to attach it right up here. So let's start working on it. And we are building. Hope you guys have followed me so far and you have understood all the component, all the logic we have built in this application. So let's come here and let's start working on it. So the one we go to work it now is we are done all of this. We have to work on the, this is also we done it. We have to work on the profile. Click on this profile, and we have to import couple of things from React. So React use state, use effect, that's coming from React. Now we have to import the image. We have to do the internal import, and we have to import the images for the avatar which we are about to use. And now we have to export the default component, and then we have to receive the props we have sent. Open profile, set open profile. We have to say current user. We have to say get shipment count, so how many shipments a particular user have created in the contract. That's what we're going to fetch it. And now we're going to take this data const count, and we're going to simply take this count. Now we'll take this use effect, and in that we're going to simply call this function. We'll say get shipment. We'll say const get shipment data. We'll call this function, and that we're going to return async because we are dealing with the synchronous behavior. The same logic we have followed in the index page, that's what we are doing here. We'll say, and we're going to simply say const all data await ship data get shipment data. Once we have the data, we have to simply update the data to set counts. That looks fine, and we have to simply close this empty array. So that's the function, and now we have to write the entire JSX. So we'll return open profile is true, then we have to display the component, otherwise we have to hide it. So the same logic we are following here as well. We'll take a div, and we have to take the same classes on the first two div. So let me quickly take it, or you can simply copy paste from the previous component. This is the same classes we have to assign for opacity 41. We'll take the onClick function, and we have to set this to false. We have to close it, close this one, and now we have to work on the actual component. So the first header is going to be the same. So let's define the same classes, and inside that we'll have a class. It's also going to be the same: full width, max LH, badging 4, auto, background white. So the same classes we have applied in the previous pop-up module, the same classes we have applied here as well. We'll take a div, it will have a flex end, and inside that we're going to take this button. This is going to be our close button. It will have an on-click function, and we have to set this to false so we can close the pop-up model. And then we have to take the icon. So the icon is provided to you. I'm going to write the code because I forgot to import the model, the component, icon component. So let me take the CSV file and let me write it very quickly. We'll take a div, it will have the classes same. The body we have to define. You can simply copy the previous components bodies and you can paste and you can do the changes, but let me write it very quickly. It will have an image, and the image is coming from the, like, we have to assign the width classes, we have to assign the source. So we'll have a, inside the image folder we have this avatar image which is given to you. We'll have this, close the image, and we're going to take this h5 and that we're going to say margin bottom 1, text excel, font medium, text gray 900, dark text white. We'll say welcome trader, that's the message we want to display, and we're going to simply close this one. We'll come here we're going to take a span, and inside that it will say text small, text gray 500, dark gray 400, and inside that we have to display the address of the user. So that's the one we have to pass it here. Close this one, and once we have the address we're going to take this div. It will have a class flex top 4 space x3, and on the medium devices top 6. Inside that we're going to take this a, and this will have the href. This is going to provide, you can provide any links, totally up to you. And in this we'll have a class flex item center, padding x4, y, text small, font medium, and the same classes we have assigned to the anchor. That's what we have to assign here, and we have to close it. In that we have to assign the balance of the user. So I'm going with the hardcode function, hardcode balance. You can display with the functionality. Okay, that's very easy, but I'm not going to do it in this video. This is the balance of the user, and the only thing I want to display the number of counts, that how many product tracking he or she has created in the contract. So let's define that very quickly. The same classes we have to assign to this as well. And we have to simply close it, and in that we have to pass the actual data which is coming from the contract. So we'll say total shipment, and we have that in the count, and we have to close that one. So for the balance you can create a function which fetch the balance from the MetaMask, and you can render that, but I'm not going to do that. I just leave it for you guys because we have done almost thousands of time on my channel. So I just want you to give a try and try to fetch the data. Looks fine. Close this one, come here, close this one, close the div, close the div, close the div, close the div, and close it, and we have an empty. That's it. So with that we are finally done with this entire project. Let's have a look. Everything's looking absolutely fine. Come here, and we have done with all the components. You can see it's absolutely incredible. So we have work on all of these files, start, tablet, and that's also looking pretty good. Close this one, and now things look good. Now it's time to test this out because our application is 100% ready. Come here, reload the browser, and you can see everything is looking absolutely fine and incredible. So these are the things we have created, and if you can click here, complete shipment, you will have this pop-up which is also working. You can get the data of the particular shipment, that's also working. You can start the shipment, that's also working. And this is the user profile we have work on. Click on this, and it's also working fine. So we have this text, this is the address, and right now he has created three tracking, product tracking. That's what we are displaying here. And you can display the balance of his wallet by creating a simple function, which I have already done and show you a lot of times, so you can create that. So everything is working fine, guys. Everything is working fine. Let me come here, let's do the inspect element, and you can see it's 100% responsive. You can simply slide it down and you can check what are the data we have here. Now close this one, and let's create one more. Click on this, provide the address, pick the date. So we're gonna go with 19. Distance is going to be 340.55. Price is going to be 45. Click on this create shipment, and here we have the MetaMask. It's popped up, and you are making the transaction. Click on this confirm, and the transaction went through, and we have created that one. So this is the index 3. This index 0, 1, 2 and 3. So we're gonna simply change the status to this. So what I will do, first I have to start the shipment, provide the receiver address, provide the receiver, so it's a index 2, and we have to click on this get started, get details, in case you have to type start, confirm, and here the transaction went through. You can see that we have changed that in transmitted. It's also working fine. Now I have to click on this get data. If I pass this, let's say 2, I'll get the data. You can see I'll get the data. So this is the data we have. What is the data we have? Bara 12. You can see the data is working fine. Now if I want to get the complete the shipment, I have to pass this, and I have to pass the, let's say 2. Click on this change status, and this will complete the assignment, the delivery process. Click on this, and this looks fine. You can see deliver timestamp. So everything is working fine 100%. I believe that you guys have enjoyed this project. If you guys have stuck anywhere, make sure to rewatch and try to understand the logic which we have built. I have already provided the starter file on my website. Simply visit to daulathussain.com, click on the article, download the starter file which I have explained, and you will get all the assets which I have provided to you. Okay, so I want you to rewrite the code along with me, and that will give you a maximum learning, and you will not be in trap of copy paste, because when you have an option of copy paste, most of the time you're going to do that. Okay, so that's why I'm not going to provide you the complete code, but you will get the assets. So you will get this CSV file, in that you will have all the icons, you will get the all the configuration setups, but all of these codes you have to write along with me. Okay, so with that, I'm ending this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed and you have liked this project. If yes, then do like and subscribe, and let me know do like and subscribe to my channel, and let other knows about my channel, because that's a really great help for me, because ultimately your motivations, your efforts, your help, I really need to grow this channel. So I really need your support, guys. So do let me know if you guys really want me to continue working on the new projects. So I really need your supports. With that, I'm ending this video. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.